Okay, if I'm correct, we are streaming at the moment, so I will wait for confirmation from Henri if we are, and then we're gonna start our new episode of Digital Classroom. But as it looks now, we are live. So let's just start our intro, and there we go. Okay, we're back and we are live. Today, it's not a normal episode, it's an episode from home, because believe it or not, we are snowed in. Yes, it's absolutely true. You can't go outside because it's snowing, it's incredibly cold, and well, that's a totally different view, right? But we wanted to do the digital classroom, and we actually have 2 different digital classrooms planned for the coming weeks, and I think they are going to be different, and I think they're going to be really interesting for you guys. Today it's all about street and travel photography. We want to go on a trip, we want to make some great images, and I'm not going to tell you guys I'm the best street photographer, but I'm just going to give you some tips that help me enormously in my career, and also some tips that I get from a really great street photographer. The other one, and this is for me something that I never did before, unless of course in a workshop, it's a beginner's live stream for a Lightroom, and that's going to be the next digital classroom. We get so many questions from people that go like, hey man, I don't understand Lightroom, I don't have a clue how it works, I'm using Photoshop. And I'm always telling people, if you can manage Photoshop, you can manage a Lightroom, because it's so incredibly easy. And somehow it just doesn't click with some people. So after some consideration, I decided, you know what, we're going to do a live stream, the pure basics of Lightroom. How do you manage your catalog? How do you import your images? How do you do your normal workflow? What is possible in Lightroom? How can you do something that's really cool looking in a few clicks? So that's going to be the next digital classroom. If you have any questions for that one, let me know in the comments below, and I will actually include those into the workshop. Okay, so are you guys ready? I know I am. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see if this works. Let me see. 1, 2, 1, 2, and I still have audio. That's awesome. Okay, so a different view on street and travel photography. So what do I mean with a different view? When we look at the world, we always look from our eyes perspective. Now, I might not trigger any bells at this moment, but did you ever notice that looking from your eyes perspective, when you shoot it, it looks boring, it looks weird? And then you get people that go like, yeah, but that's because our eyes see 50 mil and you don't shoot it on 50 mil. That's also not 100% true, because when I look at my camera now, I'm actually looking at maybe 70 mil. But when I look at my desk in front of me, I'm looking at 24 mil, because I have a more wide view. So my eyes are actually constantly zooming. And that means that when you shoot it on a 50 mil and you just do it like 50 mil, it doesn't look right. It looks weird. The reason they use the 50 mil is because it looks in perspective a little bit like our eyes do. But in essence, I never really got that one. So let's try something with our workshop. I'm first going to try something. What is it? Engage. Okay, I don't know why that's there. Let me see what I can do there. Oh, we can do a poll, Q&A, members only live stream. No, we're going to do a Q&A for you guys. So the question is, did you ever find out that that killer shot you took was actually boring when you came home? So start the Q&A. Oh, that's not a Q&A, of course. I had to do a poll. One moment. So let me... It's cool that we can do stuff like this now. Start a poll. Okay. So the question is, did you ever, there we go again, did you ever come home and that killer shot you took ended up being pretty boring? And I immediately will say yes for me. So for me, that's absolutely yes. And why can't I vote? Oh, yes, there we go. Okay, so why do I ask this when I start this webinar? For the very simple reason, when we look with our eyes, we also have something else. We are mesmerized by what we see. It's, wow, this is amazing, great, take a shot. but you don't think about what you're shooting. You're just taking the shot, and that's where we're going to talk about today. We're going to see how can we look different at stuff. Now, first of all, as you probably know, I do a lot of photography for Wiebe Suyadi, a very famous piano player in the Netherlands. Now, what we can do with an image is, of course, shoot it like this. This was shot in a church in the Doorhof. It was a very special concert. It looked amazing, and yeah, but I'm behind the artist. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad shot. It's pretty good, but what is the story here? It's a piano player in a church, and you see an audience. That's about it. It isn't bad, but it doesn't tell a story. And for me, telling a story is one of the most important things in photography. And of course, you can go closer. This is one of my advantages when I shoot Wiebe. I can get really close to him. But it becomes much nicer if you start using wide angles. And that's when you start to mess around with perspective. So, for example, when we take a shot like this, there's no audience here. So it's all empty. And that gave me the idea, use a wide angle. Put it nicely a little bit lower than myself and shoot it. And then you can see that you already get this converting verticals. But what if we try some other stuff with that wide angle? For example, slightly lower. Now you can see that we have a nice leading line towards the piano compared to this one. This one is pretty flat. You still see the converting verticals, but it doesn't really guide you into the image. And when we look at this one, it's more guiding into. But how about this? This I love. This is way more extreme. And now you also get some nice effects from the lighting in the top of the ceiling. For me, this is a much more interesting shot than all the other ones. This is nice. Wiebe loved it. This one is cool. When he saw this one, he went like, wow, you did it again. I was going like, we want to try to get something really cool. Okay, so for you guys, by the way, Merry Christmas, I want to say. But of course, Happy New Year, and I hope that this year will be a lot better. Although we do have our doubts, of course, with the whole situation in the world. But let's just focus on photography. And of course, also from a snowy Emmeloord to the greetings to a snowy Groningen. Okay, so for me, images like these are much more engaging. And of course, in landscape, it works for me. But sometimes you also need them in portrait mode. And for me personally, I let you decide. I like the landscape a lot better. But somehow I always love landscapes better. And that's because it just breathes more. And I always tell people, like, they call it at school negative space. I would love to rename it in positive space because it adds so much to your images. Anyway, I love this shot. And you can also take it without the lighting in the ceiling. It just depends on what your mood is. Okay. Under a slightly different angle, standing up, aiming the camera down, you might think, no, it's just my hand and I'm using the flip-up screen from the camera to aim it down. I don't want to disturb the audience too much, of course, when shooting. But these images, especially with those lower angles and then getting all the lighting in, like you can see here, now I had to go to the portrait mode because otherwise I couldn't get it all in. Now let's move to the Doele. And the Doele is a larger audience, of course, a larger venue. And now I can work much more with the lighting in the set. So in the Doorhof, there was no extra lighting. I had the big advantage that it was already lowering in, that the sun was already going down a little bit. So we got a nicer hue in the church. But if it was during the day, it would have been nice just by using the perspective and the angles, but I couldn't do anything more because there was no lighting. Now, when we go to the Doele and the Concertgebouw, that's where we have a lot of interesting lighting. So now we have a different aspect in our photography. Don't think it makes it easier. It actually makes it a lot harder because there's a lot of dynamic range in these shots. And with an older camera, especially when I started doing this, I started, I believe, with the Canon 10D or 20D. A lot of his hands were totally blown out because there's a LED light above his hand. So that always blew out. I found out that with the Sony, the A7R5, I don't have that problem that much anymore. I can now just lower my highlights in Lightroom, get a lot of that detail back, bump the shadows, do some noise control, and then use my contrast actually to make it nice and oomph again. Oomph. Yeah, whatever, you know what it means, right? So in this shot, I'm actually on the stage next to the artist, and I know this is not allowed, but because we know each other for many, many years, I'm allowed to shoot on the stage. So don't give any comments with, Frank, you know, you can't be on the stage. I absolutely know it's not allowed, but in this case, you know. So different lighting, but also, watch this, different angles. This is with the 24 to 70. This is with the 12 to 24. For these kinds of shots, I just love the wide angle. There's maybe not a lot of detail for the audience, but you can see the whole venue. You can see the nice leading lines, the lighting, and I just loved it. But also remember, when you're shooting a vacation, an event or whatever, try to get that storytelling part. It's so incredibly easy to just shoot some images of somebody playing, but try to get the character, try to get everything in between, because those are often the shots that people forget, that they don't even know. Since I've been shooting VB, I always try to do his performance, but also everything in between, like when he gets the flowers, when he takes in the applause, the audience taking pictures of him. That's one of the advantages that I have, because I can shoot the whole concert. If you can only shoot 3 songs, you can still shoot the audience coming in, the audience in front of the stage. Maybe take some shots instead of from the stage, turn your camera around and take some wide angles. If you send those to the artist, you may have a bigger chance that they say, hey, you know what, that photographer, ask him back. Because all the other photographers, they just take shots of, oh wow, look, it's that artist, let's take that picture. And trust me, they have millions of those pictures. However, the photographer that takes it from a different angle, that doesn't do the fan photo, like, oh my God, I have James Hetfield or Steve Vai on the photo, or Brian May, wow, amazing. No, I want a great kick-ass shot. Look at that lighting, look at the smoke, look at the color. Okay, it is somebody that I love, but still, that storytelling part, that's something that a lot of photographers forget, and that's actually what brings the better photographers out. Now, how did I find out? Very simple, because when I send in the shots like this, VB actually went like, wow, I never got something like that. And I was going like, okay, now I know what I have to shoot more. So the close-ups I absolutely love. Very close to the artist. And don't get me wrong, these are incredibly difficult to capture, because first of all, I have to make sure that his hands are frozen. So I have to use a higher shutter speed. That means my ISO goes up like crazy. But I also have to make sure that both hands are sharp and you still can see the audience and a little bit of the room. So shooting 2.8 sometimes, but most of the times I'm at 3.5, 4, 5.6. So ISO will go up to 32,000, 64,000, and that's about it where it ends. Now, nowadays with Lightroom and Topaz Photo, of course, you can do great noise reduction. Now for images like these, what I do is I will do them in batch, and I will use Lightroom's online noise reduction. You can also use Topaz, of course, but Lightroom, a lot of people already have Lightroom. And then you can just do it in batch. And then afterwards I will go through every single image and just change everything to my heart's content until I like what I see. Now, during a concert like this, I also move around in the area. And again, this is about street and travel photography, don't worry, because this all connects. So I move around in the area. So that means often during the first part of the concert, I'm on the stage next to the artist shooting him. Second part, he becomes a little bit more tired, a little bit more sweat. So he doesn't really like me shooting it from very close. I love those shots. So I will move back. And this is also important because he wants images where you can see the whole crowd. So you can give a nice overview of, look, this is what he did. Try to get all the lighting in. Now I'm shooting landscape, portrait, and I always mix those up. I shoot 70% landscape, maybe 30% portrait mode, because they have to be able to choose, right? And again here, I don't know what you guys think, but I just love the landscape so much more. Now, as soon as they start adding the disco effects, that's when I try to incorporate the lighting. So that means that if you have a disco ball, try to incorporate the disco ball. If you have a big spot on your model or on your subject or whatever, try to incorporate that little spot also, because then you can see where it's coming from. If that really messes up your shot, don't do it, but make sure you have a nice leading line through the sky, light hitting your subject, and not something like, oh, let's go as close as possible. It's one of the mistakes I made a lot when I started out with photography. I always went way too close. 400 mil, great. 420, even better. 450, awesome. And somehow it just clogs up your image and it doesn't look nice. Make sure you let your image breathe and make sure that you see the lines where the light is coming from. And also tell a story. Like, for example, what's happening here. Did she die? Did she fall asleep? Or does she love the music, and she's just laying next to the one that she loves. So this is a storytelling part of photography. And I think photography over the years have lost that storytelling part. When we go back into history, what we did with art? We told stories. We told stories about killing a dinosaur. Only one person, of course, that killed a dinosaur. Superman and Batman were already there in the prehistoric times. But it was all about storytelling, and of course as big as possible. But nowadays, what is photography? Photography is mostly selfies, stuff like, look what I ate. But how hard is it to make a selfie? That's a little bit more interesting. How hard it is to photograph your plate of food from a nicer angle. Maybe a little bit of backlight that you see the smoke coming off your steak. But why just make it as flat as possible? We are overthrowing the internet with images that don't tell anything at all anymore. No stories. And without stories, there's no society, right? So make sure you tell your stories in your photography. And you can do that with angles. If you just shoot some cows, yeah, awesome. But if you go closer and use a wide angle, that's going to be more interesting. Now, in all honesty, I was grown up in an area where we have cows and where we have animals, and I'm not really afraid of animals. But don't come too close to these, because those animals are really, really heavy. And when they are getting into your face, you can run, but there's no running. These were really quiet and relaxed, so I was daring to go a little bit closer. Now you might think like, Frank, this is a totally different shot, right? I like this one, but this one is even better. But what if you go even closer and lower? How about that one? The cool thing is also that, of course, the cows become interesting, so they come closer to the camera, which means when you use a wide angle, everything that's closer to the camera is rendered bigger. So if they come closer to the camera and use a wide angle, it stretches out that whole story more. So you get a more engaging picture. I use this a lot with, for example, hands towards the camera. Look at this. Look at how big my hand looks in front of the camera. And now this is also something that you have to realize when you shoot your models photography. When we shoot hands, we always make sure that the hand is behind the chin. Because if I place it in front, it looks bigger. When I place it here, it looks smaller. This is also why we never shoot hands like this, but always like this. This is also why we don't press, but just let it float. It all influences in how we see the image. But it doesn't mean it's natural. Because who lets her hand behind here and just float? Why? You lean on your hand. That's the reason why you have your hand there. But that doesn't look nice on a photo. Well, wake up. Photography isn't reality. In photography, we steer the viewer to what we want to tell them. And with wide angles, we can just steer them into. Look at this, how close the cow is. Isn't that scary? Yeah, because you can't take a picture with this with a telelens. For the very simple reason, it compresses. So it will never do this. So somebody that sees an image like this immediately knows this was close. Storytelling. Same here. I love comic books. I love old cars. Why not combine it? But that's boring. Why not sit on the floor and use a wide angle? Again, 12 to 24. You can shoot this with the 24, 12 to 24, even better. But also to get more of the sun in. I love having the sun for lens flare. It makes it really dramatic if you make it black and white, like you see here. But getting the sun in can be a little bit tricky when you use, for example, a 50mm lens, because you have to lay on the floor. Getting that sun in is really difficult. With a 12mm, no problem at all. You just lay it on the floor and you get almost everything in that you want. Just be a little bit careful with converting verticals. But if you use it more in the extreme way, it's great, because then it goes everywhere. And when it goes everywhere, it's great. I really mean this. When I started with photography, I tried to shoot something very symmetrical. And I thought I nailed it. It looked incredibly symmetrical. It was like a dock into the water, and it was awesome. Yeah, I thought. And then somebody on a forum said, you know, you're 2 pixels off on the left side. And I was just going like, 2 pixels off on the left side? Are you insane? And then I remembered, many years ago, I shot an image and somebody told me, you block up all the shadows, that's bad. And I knew there was still detail in the shadow. So what did I do? I run an action, +1. The only thing I did was raise the whole image digitally 1 point. And I said, is this better? Yeah, that's better. You know what he did? He didn't look at the image. He just went over it with a picker, saw 0, and 0 is bad. If he sees 1, there's detail. Don't fool yourself with that kind of stuff. If you want to shoot symmetrical, make sure it looks nice. And if somebody says it's 2 pixels off, that's great. If it looks nice, okay. For me, that's too late. I decided to do nothing symmetrical anymore and just mess up the whole shot. So in this case, I try to get the cross a little bit straight and everything else. I just love the way that it looks more chaotic. But if you are more into symmetrical, try to use the camera with the overlaying lines. They help a lot. I use them sometimes too. Sometimes a story is funny if it's told correctly. But an image can't be funny if you can't explain the image, right? Many years ago, I did a portfolio review for somebody, and it was a great portfolio, nothing wrong. There was only one image in there of a wooden mailbox. And I said, that image has to go. And he said, no, it's one of the best images. No, it's not. You have a great kick-ass portfolio, and this image, it's nothing. And he said, no, you don't get it. That's the last wooden mailbox in England. I said, I still don't get it. I don't care. It's not a great image. You don't get it. It's the last mailbox. You know, that's great when you have your family visiting and you have a slideshow and you tell that story like, hey, this is the last wooden mailbox. Great. But for me, seeing an image without the story, it doesn't connect. So what could he done in a week? Oh, my phone. So what could he have done? Just choose a different angle. Maybe go back in a different period of time where, for example, the sun is going down. Or maybe tint the image other way. Or use something with, for example, coloring. Or maybe go back when it's raining or snowing. So my image, and I always call this my mailbox image because I combine it with this story, is the Kosher Castle. Now when you go to America, we all know, of course, White Castle. There's one that's actually called Kosher Castle. Now, in all honesty, I thought it was funny, so I wanted to take a shot, but just taking a shot of that sign, you have to connect the story. But when you place the sun behind it and you set it under a certain angle, it can also become an interesting image, especially with Apple Bank behind it, because you have fast food and Apple. Although it doesn't connect with the bank and the fast food, you got a little bit of that connection in there. So, although there's a story connected to this one and it's not an image that I would put in my portfolio, at least it's more interesting than just the sign like, hey, look, that sign is, and then you tell the story. Now, wide angles can also be cool by using signs. For example, this was shot during a photo walk, the Scott Kelby photo walk on Urk. You can place it underneath something, like a structure, and just aim it up, make it black and white, and you have instant art. Or just place it on the floor. And I love it on the floor, because it gives you such a weird perspective, almost an ants perspective. Now, when you place, for example, a garbage bag a little bit more forward, you can create depth. So without it, it looks like, wow, it's really long, and there we have Henri. It's really long and tight. But as soon as we go here, you can see it works much better, because now we have depth in our image. Henri, where are you going?
I'm checking who has called. Maybe it was your parents or it's important.
Ah, okay. So wide angles can also give you a lot of attention towards the subject. So for example, here the boots. How are those boots there? Well, you can shoot it with a wide angle or with a tailie. Now with a wide angle, this is what I did here. The boots become really big. They almost take up all the frame, but because it's a wide angle, you can still see everything around it. If I shoot something like this with a more compressed lens, I only see the boots and I miss everything around it. So angles and wide angles, great combination. Same here, you want to have everything in low angle with a wide angle. Lay on the floor, aim your camera up. So there's a lot of those images in there, and I try to do as many different examples as possible so you guys can see it from different angles. Again, not all the shots will be one for you, but maybe you can just get some tips out of it. When you go into the forest, and many years ago I was asked by Natuurmonument to do a workshop inside the forest, and I was just going like, but I'm a fashion photographer, I shoot nature, but what? And it was the most rainy and most bizarre day. There was absolutely no interest from people because it was raining. So I went into the forest with 3 people. And there was nothing in the forest. Nothing. Trees, of course, because otherwise it isn't a forest. And a lot of dirt that's supposed to be there. No animals, no birds. No nice foliage, no nice hills or whatever. Trees, 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 and you just walked around trees. And I was just going like, yeah, it's an educational walk. I have to teach them something, and I don't know anything about trees. I could say, that's an oak, and it would probably be something else. I don't have a clue. But wide angles always give you something cool. And you know, the funny part is that even on your phone, there's a great wide angle. The only thing you have to do is place your camera against the tree, aim it up, and use the widest angle you have and just shoot up. And everything looks awesome from that perspective. Look at this. All shot from a very low angle, aimed almost straight up. Even from the streets, you can shoot something that looks interesting without breaking the bank with very difficult lenses or software or whatever.
Was not important, Frank.
Okay, cool. And I've done it many times after that, because at that moment I just figured out like, okay, let's try something weird with the tree. And I've done it so many times after that, and it's one of my favorite techniques to use. Now, here I'm using it in the Apple store on, I believe it's 5th Avenue in New York. And the cool thing about it is if you start doing it, you start to see it in different perspectives. Like, okay, I can do it in nature, I can do it with my model photography, I can do it with architecture, but how about just doing it in my travel photography? So when we visited the Apple store, and I highly recommend you guys visiting it, even if you're on Android, it's an amazing store. I saw this staircase, and it was all glass and people walking up, and I was just going like, this is interesting. So I just stood under the staircase, aimed the camera up, and took this shot. Now, this doesn't tell the story for me, because there's one vital piece of information I didn't give you guys yet about storytelling. Many years ago, one of my models came up to me and he said, I have this beautiful photo shoot in Miami. It's awesome. And I looked at the images and they were really great, but it was a great model. So yeah, of course the images are great. She knows how to pose and she looks great, so why not? There was only one thing, and she didn't really like me saying it. I couldn't see it was in America. It was just sand and blue skies. That can be anywhere. I can have a blue backdrop and some sand in the studio. So I told her, why didn't you include the American flag? A beach house like where you see on Baywatch, or something that connects me to Miami. At that point, she became a little bit angry at me and can't you be happy for me with those shots? And I was going, I'm trying to help, but that's the important part. Put something in your images that converts you to that location, that will literally tell the viewer it's there. In all those shots from the street, you saw an American flag, Chrysler building, because that's of Manhattan, that's part of that story. And I wonder if you already picked that up. The poll is going great, 100% up until now. Yes, I don't know how many people voted, but that's great. Okay, so underneath the stairs, okay, interesting. But how about going a little bit further back? Now I can see the Apple logo. Now I know where I am. I also see the building in the back, and I see one person standing there like this. Lucky shot. I really like this one, but let's up the ante a little bit. Let's try to shoot it literally up. The only problem is I love this shot, but I can't see the Apple logo right. So take one step back, and there you go. Zoom in a little bit more. The reason I'm zooming in here more, do you see all the lines on the Apple logo from the other building? I love that reflection. And on the wide angle, as you can see here, it didn't really register. And on this one, yes. Also, of course, because it's angled slightly more like this. But I just love that reflection there. And this is one of the things I always look for in photography. Reflections, interesting angles. And of course, something like this, where you have all those buildings converted. I just love this shot. And I took it from outside. And as I said, I never shoot something straight. I'm just kidding. I just liked it a little bit weird like this. Same here, wide angle, lower angle. A lot of these shots are, again, just for the wide angles. Now, this is something that I included because it's something for me that I don't see a lot. In essence, I never see something like this in Europe, or maybe in Spain or whatever, but where I live, we don't see this. So when I go to America and I see Big Boy and fast food chains like this, I go like, oh, this is interesting. So for me, it looks different. And this is, I think, the best tip I can give you guys. A lot of people travel around all over the world to shoot great images, and they forget one important thing. Everybody flies over the world to take great images. So why not stay in your own place? You have a big advantage. You know the location. you know the weather. You can go back whenever you want. There's no excuse going like, yeah, I wanted to shoot a sunset, but I had to choose between 3 locations. No, man, you live there. You go on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or you go every day. Your location can be super, super interesting. I teach a workshop called On Location in Emmeloord. The challenge is no further than 200 meters around our studio. Find 5 great locations that look absolutely horrendous. And let's create some kick-ass shots there with a model. We always succeed for the very simple reason. If you have a not interesting location, you are forced to make it more interesting. So when I take a shot like this, I fell into the photography trap for tourists. Look at the image. I shot it from ice perspective. I like the shadow, I like the colors. But is it really interesting? No. It's not. But it is in there because I liked it. And that's also one of the reasons I included it. The colors, the contrast, the shadow, the big boy. But it would have been much interesting if I would have gone lower and shoot it up. But at that point, I didn't. Panoramic shots. We all have it in our cameras and we all have it in our phones. So why not use it? Panoramic shots can literally give your image a totally different look. Because with panoramic shots, you are looking at the world in a totally different way. Now, there's one thing with panoramic shots that's absolutely horrendous and annoying as hell. How do I know where my panoramic shot started? So, what I do is before I start a panoramic shot on my normal camera, so I shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I always do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. So now when I look in Lightroom and I see 1 finger and 2 fingers, I know exactly that's where my panoramic shot is. And you can always later in Photoshop, in Lightroom, just take out the fingers and then just stack all the panoramic shots and save some space in your Lightroom catalog, of course. Or Lightroom looks less crowd, whatever, you know what I mean. Let me see, Jan Dark. That's actually an issue. I feel like everywhere I go, I end up taking the same pictures. To really get something, you have to spend some time there. Yes, I think it's important to spend some time there. Or, indeed, get people that know the area. That's one of the things about internet, and I will talk about it a little bit later on. If you know internet, you know that we also have social media. And you can ask people that are there actually like, hey, I come to Miami next week, can you show me around? And normally we get a lot of replies from people like, hey, I know some cool locations. And then you go with the locals. If you don't go with the locals, I highly recommend first take everything in. Don't touch your camera yet. Take everything in, be mesmerized, but wow, this looks awesome. And as soon as you get used to it, that's the moment when you grab your camera. I found out that my personal take is often that I just run in with the camera, take the shots, look around and okay, bye, gone. And that's actually wrong because at that point you're still, wow, this looks great. You take those shots, you come home and you go like, where's that killer shot? That National Geographic winning shot. And you look at one boring shot of a mountain and you go like, it can't be that one. And then you look at the timestamp and you go like, it's that one. And why? Because you didn't take it in yet. You just looked at it and it looked amazing and you shot it and it's great. Think about getting a new instrument, a new guitar. You start playing with it and it's great. And they call it the honeymoon weeks. And then after a few weeks you start to mention, this place is not nice. Let's adjust it. Oh yeah, neck relief, much better. Oh, there's one fret not great. Okay, oh yeah, that feels better. And then after 4 or 5 months, you can literally say, now it's my guitar, now I know how it works. And I think with photography, it's the same thing. If you look at something totally new, wow. But if you wait a little bit longer, that's great. Yeah, I get that. When I'm new somewhere, I'm too trigger happy. That's me. 100%. I totally agree. Okay, so panoramic shots like this one, I just like it. These are done with my normal camera, but you can also shoot them with your iPhone, and that's even easier. Now with the iPhone, I always use it vertical. I believe nowadays that's actually standard, but it gets more resolution. At night it can be a little bit tricky, but as you can see here, it works. Now, visit the same location over and over again, and again with locals. This was Dumbo, down under Manhattan Bridge, if I am correct, and down under Manhattan, Brooklyn, whatever. But it's called Dumbo. And at first, the first time we visited New York, I never knew about Dumbo. So we booked actually a tour that was too expensive, with a boat that was absolutely horrendous. And then one of my friends in New York actually said, "You're crazy, man." He said, "Just book a hop on hop off tour without any extras, so you can get around New York easier than with a taxi, and then take the and I don't know how to say it in English, forensic taxi, where people use when they go to work." We parked the car all the way on one side of Manhattan, took the boat, and it was, I believe, $2, and we just went over all Manhattan and just stayed until we got back for $2, get off the boat, and I believe it was 1 hour, and we got the most amazing shots. And that's actually also when we found out about Dumbo. And Dumbo is a place where you can literally make the most beautiful shots of the New York skyline, at least I think. And go back, because this was one moment, but then at night it looks totally different. As you can see here, this is one of my favorite shots of the skyline of New York that I ever took. But as you can see here, I went back a few times and I took the same panoramic shot. So I like this one. This one was okay. And then at night, wow. And roads. I love roads. Road travels. When we go to America, I always love to do a road trip. And often we, for example, if we have Photoshop World in Las Vegas, we will land in LA or San Francisco and visit friends. And then always go over the old Route 66 towards Vegas. And that's one of my favorite things to do. So taking road trip images is great. But using the road itself can be interesting. But you can shoot it like this, for example, through the windshield of your car or RV in this case, when Henri is driving, of course. Or not. But yeah, I don't know. It's that ice perspective, you know what I mean? It looks okay, it's great. Wow, great road. Yeah, interesting. But what if we make it a little bit more interesting? This is much more interesting, right? We a little bit lower on the floor, aim the camera slightly up, using f16, f22 to get a really great depth of field. And now you can get so much more interesting shots. And this is all f22, f16. Now, I'm totally honest with you guys, don't do this at the end of your trip, especially not in a city. Let me explain you why. So when you travel with a normal travel companion, it's pretty easy. You go from A to B, and according to your navigational system, that's 1 hour, right? If you travel with a photographer, things get slightly different. When you travel from A to B, that's normally 1 hour. With a photographer, that can be 3 or 4 hours. Because we always see something that's interesting. We always want to shoot something with our cameras, of course. And that means that when you do shots like this, and you go like, "Honey, is there something behind me? Because I'm leaning on the floor." The first 2 days, they will probably go like, "Yeah, no, honey, no problem." But after a week, and the navigational system starts to go like, normally it will take you 1 hour, but with your companion it will take 3. I'm not so sure about sitting down anymore. So make sure you do those lower shots at the start of your holiday. Just a tip. But lower angles, awesome with roads, as you can see here, San Francisco. And here you can also see the difference between wide angle and more zoomed in. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of zooming in on roads, but it does compress the heck out of a road. And that also means that you can see all the differences with warmth getting up from, English is not my native tongue, so sometimes I have to look a little bit for words, but you can see all that heat just going off the concrete. And I just love that effect when you use a zoom lens. Same here. Compressing creates more, wow, it's great. Wide angle is more like, hey, it's wide. Sorry. Here I'm using I believe it was a 400mm lens where I actually compressed everything together. Look at all those little power lines there, of course not that close together. And here you can actually, I remember why I did this. This was during one of the road trips, and I just loved that, how do you call it, the stretch of the roads in America. It's so huge, and you just stand there and you go like, wow. Like when I'm standing in my hometown and I look in the distance, I can see farms and I can see a village, and that's about it. You can't see anything else because there's a village there that's blocking your view, or there are trees or whatever. And trust me, where I live, you can look really far over the country, but still there is a blockage somewhere. The thing was here, and I remember this very clearly. I was standing there with the camera with a wide angle, and I shot it, and it looked nothing like what I experienced. Because what I experienced was this road just going on and on and on, and just going over that mountain and just keeps on going. And at that point, there's only one solution. Go back to the car, get the 400 mil, compress the heck out of it, and then you can actually see the detail of that road. The wide angle showed the wideness. The compression showed literally how far it was. And it just gave me a different look. Route 66, it's all about timing. In this case, we had time, so we wanted to do a sunset shot with the Route 66 sign. Now, one tip, if you see the Route 66 sign, shoot it. I was very dumb. I saw them all the time, and at one point I stopped, take a picture, next one, take a picture. And then the sun was going a little bit down. I was going like, no, there are plenty of those signs on the road. I'm just going to keep driving. And we couldn't find anyone anymore. It was no more Route 66 signs. And then we found this one, and we literally just stood there. Sun was going down. We shot it, and at that point I wanted to go into the car, and Henri said, "Are you happy?" I said, "Yeah, the only thing is," and that happened a few minutes before, I said it would be great if like a few minutes before we saw the train, but there wasn't a Route 66 sign. And at that point I was in the car, and Henri said, "Look behind you. There's the car in the distance, but also the train." And the car in the distance and the train, it just makes those pictures so more incredible. I like this one, but it's empty. It doesn't really tell me something. By going a little bit more on the side and that car in the distance, the train, the slightly different angle, for me it tells the story a bit more. So same location, slightly different angle and some elements in the shot, totally different story. The street, one of the most important things in street and travel photography, of course, the street. And I remember my first portfolio review I got from Maisel during a Photoshop World. And I was so happy that he would look at my images, because Maisel is a hero of me, of course, for street and travel photography. He's one of the best. And he just looked at my portfolio and go like, yeah, and I won't repeat exactly what he said. "You're lucky you're a great fashion photographer, because this, it's okay." And I was really let down. And Scott Kelby actually told me, that's a compliment. Then a few months later, we were in New York, and I got a phone call from Jay. "Let's come over and have some fun." So I went over to Jay's house, and the cool thing is, he could explain to me in very, very simple examples what I did wrong. The first thing I did wrong was, of course, finding the story. And he took me to a room, and there were all these reflections, and he said, "You can't do anything wrong, but photograph the room like you feel it, like you experience it." And I was, this is weird. But I took the shot, and he said, "Great." I said, "Okay," but I said, "No, great." I took a satellite dish and a shadow and some weird stuff around it. He said, "Great, great shot. This is how you feel the room." He said, "But you thought about it." "Yes." "Okay." He said, "Now, what is the chance when you walk on the street and you find a lady with a Dalmatian, red shoes, red skirt, red shirt, and a red umbrella?" Chance is pretty small, right? But how about just a pretty lady with red shoes and a Dalmatian? Still pretty low. But how about someone interesting? Yeah, chances go up, right? Chances go up every time. So when you go on the street, don't pre-think about what you're going to shoot. And the other thing that I did wrong constantly was I was a hunter. That means that you just walk around and take shots. Why not find the stage and the players will come? Very simple. Sit somewhere that's interesting. For example, a yellow wall. Sit there, and at one point somebody will walk by. The cool thing is you might think you get less shots. You actually get more, because you have to choose your locations perfectly. Like, for example, crossings, zebras, great. Very busy roads where you can shoot 2 angles. And another thing is, if you are afraid to shoot people, no problem at all if you are at a crossroads. For the very simple reason, everybody just walks by. When you sit down, you disappear. People don't notice you anymore. When you walk around with your camera like crazy and shooting, everybody will notice you. But if you just sit down, use your flip-up screen and just shoot, some people will go up and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you say, "I'm on holiday, my wife is shopping," and I take some pictures. Here, look, great. Be open, be nice, and I never got into any trouble with that. Always have your camera ready. This is not staged. I saw this in London in the metro station, and I just had to shoot it. I just love this one. It's a lucky shot, literally. Sometimes I just love debris and grittiness, but it doesn't tell a story. So for me, this is a cool shot. For somebody else, it might be like, hey, I love how everything looks and it's great, but it doesn't really tell that story. Unless you get a little bit of humor in. Read the signs. Yes? Or a reflection. So now I make an uninteresting image a little bit more interesting by incorporating other things like humor or reflections, which if you don't have any feeling with the shot, the scene, because you see this all the time, at least you now see something with a reflection, or you can laugh a little bit about the sign. Sometimes I also look for stuff that may not be working, or it might just trigger your funny bone at the right moment, like fail. Like, yeah, it's normal on a meter, but I just thought it was funny at that point. I like smoke, like in photography, model photography, but also when it's coming out of the street, like in New York. I remember the first time I went to New York, I saw all that smoke coming out of the floor, and I was going like, that's like in the movies. And I shot a lot of those images. And as you can see here, they are great for me, but again, they don't tell a real story. Now, as soon as I started visiting New York more, I wasn't looking at the smoke anymore, because we knew the smoke was coming out of the ground, right? But I started to look more for combinations of color and contrast, like for example here, the dark skin, the dark hair, and then the yellow cap and the red sign and the blue backpack. I love that combination. It really pops. And it's also the New York way. Looking straight ahead, you see all the yellow caps, and people are just... the traffic signs are just suggestions, a friend of mine said. If you wait for a red sign, you're a tourist. If you walk over, you're a New Yorker. If you scream and walk over, you're a real New Yorker. So I don't know if that's true, but he did it, and it seemed to work. I also love framing. So when I go out on vacation, I don't just shoot the normal vacation shots. I always try to frame it a little bit. Like, for example, when I shoot people, I try to get them at work or with an expression or doing something. And sometimes it works when you talk to somebody like, hey, can you do this? Sometimes it just works when you shoot it. Like here, I didn't ask, I just shot. Same here. But you can see the framing in the stuff. And sometimes it's also just a situation, like why is he standing there next to a waiting room? This was on a train station. And I just love people. The guy with the hat in the fast food. When I see him, I see a cigar shop. I don't see a fast food chain. It's the combination, it doesn't commute well with me. And when I look at the back, I actually see something like a cigar shop. So it's kind of like, wow, what's going on here? Same here again, framing between the sides of the shop. This one I made black and white to get a little bit more of that grit in, and I love the way that her eyes was just looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? Also the action here, the movement of the pavement. I just love this kind of shots to take on the street. He spotted me, so no problem of course, but that takes away a little bit of the spontaneity out of the shot. This is the kind of shop that we never see, so I was just shooting it as a shop. And as you can see here, because I'm not framing it, I'm just shooting it, it's much less interesting. This one tells a story, this one is just, it's a dirty shop, done. And maybe it's nice, maybe it's the best pizza place in the world, I don't know. Now, this one was very cool, and I have to make absolutely sure that there's one thing 100% sure. These images were shot years ago. I am 100% not political. I don't care. Of course I care. But when I do photography, I don't care what's going on in the world. I just want to take great images. If people are nice to me, I'm nice to people. If their governments do something that I don't like, it's not the people that do it, right? So let's make that 100% sure that I don't get any responses on why were you there when it was way before that period, and I would do it again because people are people and not governments. So let's make that 100% sure. Now, when I was in Manhattan, I found out then when we shot certain people that they would always do this. And then somebody told me like, hey Frank, you have to go to, and I don't remember exactly the address. He said, you will love it there. It's a Jewish neighborhood. People are incredibly nice. They are very, very open for photography. And it looks like Rocky with the metro overboard. I went there, and I have to be totally honest, it was a totally different experience than shooting in Manhattan. In Manhattan, it was always covering up. Over there, I was greeted incredibly friendly, taken into a store to taste something, and just taking some images on the street, no problems at all. And in all honesty, it was a really bad neighborhood, I think, and that's something that triggers me as a photographer. I love shooting debris and structure and gritty stuff. And then especially when somebody just walks over with some balloons, I just go, it's a great combination. I just love shooting into the stores like this, or using the reflections of the windows. And again, that framing of that pizza in the side and then just making everything fit in. This one was done later from the pizza store you saw before. You see that this one tells a much different story. It's a little bit more interesting. Still not a great shot, but a little bit more. Wait for the expression. In this case, I just saw that he was they're not fighting, it looks a little bit like, but he just go, oh, do you want ketchup? And he did it a few times. I was going, I have to shoot that. So I was trying to not pay any, or draw any attention. I was just leaving to the back. And at one point somebody ordered and I was going like, do you want it? And I would click, and I got it, next. This one reminded me a little bit of Clark Kent coming out of the building just before changing into Superman. And sometimes it's just something at the moment that I see. Like I loved how this lady walks with her umbrella and that little cart. Or he just sitting next to his store. This was actually a friend of mine. So, but I didn't know it was a friend of mine. I met him on the internet, and he would show me around. And it was a great guy, by the way. But I was just waiting for him. And I believe it was 15 minutes before we had a meeting. And I never saw his picture. I only saw him on Facebook. And I was just shooting, and this guy came up to me and like, and I was, this is a weird guy. So I just kept shooting. And then he gave me a hand. He said, hey, I said, oh, yeah, okay, great. Framing again. And do remember that most of these shots are just my vacation shots. And I'm just giving you tips like how I see it. And I hope that you get some tips out of it. Like with the framing, for me, that was a huge difference between just taking a shot and making sure that everything was framed nicely. And of course, you get a lot more information, like the platter, the fresh fruit. It just immediately transports you again to that storytelling part. Close-ups, great. And sometimes you just shoot. Now, why is this image here? Is it interesting? No. But there's a story behind this one. Let me grab my phone. Now, one of the things that I hear a lot from people that do street and travel photography is they're a little bit afraid of shooting people. And I totally get it. Because those guys were doing something completely different than what you see now. But the moment I grabbed my camera and I pointed, they saw me and I was going, okay, that moment is gone, done. And they just took the shot and said, hey, well, bye. If you want to do something that's scary, and you are not 100% sure if you can pull it off, try the inverse selfie. Make sure that your strobe is off and just do this. It looks like you're taking a selfie, but in essence, you're taking a photo, right? So it can help to get over the fear. Now, there's one thing that I never will shoot. I will never shoot somebody to make her look weird or make it look at that weird person. That's not the kind of guy that I am. If I shoot somebody, I want to create a great image. I want to create a great story. And I cannot imagine that people would not like that image or would take offense of that image. So that's actually why I'm a little bit less of the can I take your picture, please? Mostly I will just take the picture and be very open to the people after I took the picture, like, hey, look at this, do you like it? I can send it to you. The same thing actually you can do with your own camera. All the cameras nowadays have EVFs, so also on the display you can look. And I remember in Mexico there was a guy later on in the slideshow with a hat, and always when somebody wanted to shoot him and he looked great, he looked away. And I thought, that's not going to happen to me. So I walked up, and he saw my camera and he looked me straight into the eyes with this, okay, let's start this game. As soon as you point towards me, I'm going to look away, you photographer. And he was really looking like that, you know, like really want to play that game. And I was going, okay, I'm in. So what I did, there was this fountain next to him. And I just aimed my camera towards the fountain, took some shots, and then looked at the shots. He kept staring at me like, why don't you shoot me? Well, I didn't shoot the fountain. I looked through the viewfinder at the fountain and pressed the button. Didn't press the button. Then I switched over to my live view, looked at the fountain, and from the corner of my eyes towards my live view, and I just pressed very slowly on the shutter and took the shots. Later on I showed him and he said, "You're smart." And he liked the shot. So in the end it all worked out. Warning reds. Again, I could have just shot this, but I just liked it from a slightly lower angle. And for me, it gives me a story to tell. And it gives me something in a slideshow where it's not the best shot, but I can connect a story to it. So when I'm showing this to family, I will incorporate an image like this because I can tell them like, hey, you know what happened? This and this. You know, sometimes those also help. This is one that I really like for the reflection. The first time you look at it, you go like, yeah, interesting, but you realize that it's all reflections you see, right? Or not all, but the buildings, how they interconnect, it's all reflections. And I just absolutely love that. It was a weird experience because if you just moved around a little bit, you can see that whole photo changing. And somehow I just like this one the best. And Man in the Van. It's those little things that just draw my eyes. Reflection and a lot of booze. Reflections again. And of course colors. I love colors, especially red. But also incorporate where you are. Welcome to Ruby's. Remember the beach shots without American flags or beach houses. Make sure you incorporate that people know where you are. And of course when you're ever in New York you have to visit Nathan's. That's the only reason the image is in here. Making a little bit of advertising for Nathan's. And when there is no one there to help you tell your story and you have your wife with you and she loves minions, why not, right? Okay, crossings. These are the places where you can disappear from the crowd and take great shots. And you can see weird people passing. And sometimes also normal people, of course, but they aren't that interesting to shoot, right? These are all shot at crossings. I will just sit down and wait. Find the stage and the players will come. And as you can see here, we even found Ice-T. I don't know, I think he misses water or something. Marvel, more for me. And somehow when you stand up a little bit and point your camera down, you get some interesting perspective. You have to be careful, of course, on the roads, but overall it's okay. Same story here. He just kept coming up to me. I was going like, oh my God, this is the first time ever I'm going to be in trouble by shooting somebody. And then he looked at me, he's like, "You're Frank, right?" I was just going like, "Yes. See you later in an hour at B&H." So this was one of my contacts at B&H and I was doing a speech there. So I was just going like, so sometimes it can be scary, of course, shooting on the street. Again, it's the combination, that suit, the hat, the newspapers, the backpack. It's something that just draws my eyes. And of course signs. I love this kind of stuff. Also with the yellow caps in the back, it immediately gives me that feeling that I have when I'm in New York. Everywhere is yellow caps. Everything is just chaos and a lot of people with signs. And yeah, for me that just gets it. But again, it's how about you shoot it. For example, when I look at this shot, it doesn't give me that chaotic feeling. So I shot this one to make sure that I didn't miss the shot. But then by just recomposing, and it's just a few seconds later, I got this one. And this one is so much better. First of all, he looks me straight in the face. I can see the sign better, and now I can see that there's a lot of people on the streets. Look at the difference. Empty streets with a lot of yellow caps. This one is way better. Yeah, so always try to reposition your camera. And again, people crossing the roads. I just love that. And people don't take any notice when you are there because they are just focused on crossing that road. They don't want to do anything else. They just wait until they can go. And as you can see here, I'm doing it everywhere I go. I spend at least 1 hour at a crossroads or combined just to take some of those shots. And Henri will go shopping or maybe she do the laundry or whatever. And I will just go outside and take these shots. And again, most of these are just for fun, but I hope you also see some images that you like. Again, wide angle. Now this one, what I do here is I will just walk over the crossway, hold my camera sideways, and just in the middle of the road I will stop, click, 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 and then just walk through, depending on how busy it is, of course. And about storytelling. Now, this one I absolutely love, but not this shot. This is just a shopping cart with some tires. What is it doing there? But how about this one? Just wait a little bit for the story. This one is not interesting, but this one, you have the tires. Why are there tires? You have that woman looking at the guy on the other side with the refrigerator, and you just know, when you look at it, you just know it's going to go wrong. It's the same situation. Just wait for 5 or 10 minutes. Find the stage and the players will come. This one is boring. This one tells a story. But also look at the composition. It's somewhere in the distance. If you go closer and use your wide angle, it pops out more and everything around it will be captured. But at that point I didn't bring a wide angle probably. Again, focus. This one I like. But does it really tell the story? Yes, it does. You have the yellow cap, you have the crossing, you have the NYPD, you have somebody that actually has a bag, Hollywood, you have slippers, insane in New York, but okay. But sometimes there's also too much information and then you miss the part that I found interesting because slippers in New York, crazy, right? Why not focus on the slippers? Makes the story so much better. And now you can also see that it's not, by the way, Hollywood, but New York that he's carrying. I thought it was Hollywood, sorry. So, yeah, it's, you know, focus. Nice shot, but maybe too much information. Great for me. Are you not inspired? I have that problem sometimes. Find something that makes it inspiring. For example, find your parking garage. Lay down on the floor, take some shots, and you will find out that at one point you will start to find, oh, nice. Oh, an angle. Let's take that angle. Or the arrow. Sorry. Wow, great. Oh, a red car. And you will find out that even if you are uninspired, you will become inspired. I have the same thing with making music. Sometimes I don't feel like it. And I just sit down here and I just go like, what? And I will find out when I pick up a guitar, before I know it, oh yeah, that's great. Oh, that sounds nice. And before you know it, you go, oh, you know what? I didn't want to record today. Let's record. And before you know it, and we goes like, Frank, it's now 4 hours. Are you coming? And I go like, it's 4 hours already? Wow, I recorded the whole song. That's the thing. If you're not inspired, sometimes you need something that's totally uninspiring, like a parking garage. If that can trigger your inspiration, dude, if you go outside, you have a blast. And of course, there was this image from the 99-cent store that was sold for a few million. I thought, I can do that better. So if you want to buy it, it's for sale now for 99 cents because nobody wants to buy it for $1 million. Weird, right? And of course, what we love is laundromats. Now, we do have them in the Netherlands, but not like this. Maybe, but not in our area. And when I go to a laundromat, we always try to find something that's a little bit gritty and dirty. And I will use a filter in Lightroom or Photoshop, Clarity and Structure that really brings out that dirt. And I just love shooting in laundromats. As you can see here, it's a totally different world for me. Now, if you're every day in a laundromat, you go like, yeah, Frank, but that's a laundromat. I know. Remember, we fly over because what we're used to isn't interesting for us. For me, this is super interesting. And I love these shots. Hotels, same thing. If you're not inspired, go out of your hotel room and find symmetry. Now, as mentioned before, I'm not a big symmetry fan, but I did shoot these just with my iPhone. At this point, for example, I believe this was at Photoshop World, and sometimes you have a few hours off, and you just go to the hotel, and I will just find interesting stuff. Or, for example, like this Red Room, Murder in The Shining. I just got a vibe of this hotel from... Looks great, so why not take some shots there? Same here, look at the symmetry. I just love that. And you know what? If you do stuff like this constantly, you are developing an eye for it. And then when you are outside on the streets, it's so much easier to shoot it. I always compare it to running a marathon. If you want to run 1 marathon, train with 3, because if you can finish 3, 1 will be incredibly easy. Now, people. There's one thing that I don't like, and that's shooting people that are homeless or that are in situations that are less fortunate or people that look handicapped or whatever. Don't make fun of people, guys. It's too easy and you hurt people. Don't do it. Now, there are some images in here from homeless people, but I will explain that later. Some people don't want to get shot. Great, but if you do it like this, don't mind me shooting it. And he actually, let me put it this way, the story behind this is he dared me to shoot him. And then the moment I grabbed my camera, he did something like this, and at that point, you're mine, and I will just shoot it. Again, this guy reminded me very much of Clark Kent from Superman. Now, if you are afraid, shoot in metro stations, because people are inside the trains, they can't come out. And again, framing. Look at this one, framing. You have to be careful that you find something that's interesting. In this case, I love the way that she was just leaning against with the earbuds in and the hair and the whole styling. It could be a model. So I thought like, hey, framing wise, and you see the people behind it, the person just looking over her. I just thought it was interesting. Or when you are at the Starbucks, but try to incorporate again. See the logo? You don't have to incorporate everything. Incorporate it a little bit, so you know where you are. This guy, I just walked into the shoe store and I said, can I take your pictures? He loved it and he was just posing for me, doing his work. Great. In most cases, people will just say yes if you ask it nicely. In most cases, yes. In some cases, no. And then respect that and move on. And this was, I believe, in San Francisco on the street. A lot of cool characters. This guy was staged because I loved the story in the back. I loved the records. And I wanted to take the shot and he just came in and said, oh, do you mind if I look at the records? I said, do you mind if I take a shot while you're doing it? And he said, absolutely not. How do you want me to sit? That's the best way. Because then you have interaction, you become a sort of friends, and that's a great way to take photos. Also on the street, I just love the lighting here and the whole set. This was in Dubai and these people love to pose for you. So why not take the shots, right? If they invite you over to take their shots, please, please take the shot. Great. At night, artist, San Francisco, I believe, great to shoot and to test your gear. Make sure that you find the right lighting, make sure that you find something interesting, and especially in low light, it can be really challenging. But if it works, the colors, they can really pop out, like you can see here. This guy was in a store with all the crosses in the back. Now, I had to be fast because he didn't really like his picture. It was more like, yeah, do it fast. And I was just going like, okay, maybe I was a little bit too fast. Because his expression is a little bit off, but I just loved all the crosses in the back. Same thing here, I was on the street and I wasn't even shooting him, I was shooting something else. And he just came by and he said, are you shooting me? And he just looked, I'm tall, he's like this big for me, so he was also tall and wide. And he just looked really aggressive at that point. And I was going like, no, dude, no, you're not on the shot. But I love your tats and your whole look. Do you mind? And he was just telling his life story, putting his arms together. That's also a way that it can go, right? That's diffusing a situation that could be dangerous. But for the very simple reason, if somebody doesn't want to be on the picture, don't be an ass. Say, okay, sorry, dude, here is the picture, delete, done. And you're better. And sometimes that will even go wrong. And, well, at that point, sorry, you met somebody in the 1%, run. This was the guy, remember, with the fountain? Do you see his eyes? He's actually laughing now because this one I did take with his permission. That's why he's laughing. Same here, Dubai. This was the moment where I decided to go for the Sony cameras. I was shooting with the Canon and the Sony. Now, when you do street and travel photography, you can run into a situation where you have a lot of backlighting and the image can come out a little bit wonky or weird unless you use your exposure compensation, of course, or spot metering. The moment I shot this with the Canon, I needed 3 shots to get it right, or to get it the way that I like it right. With the Sony, the cool thing was, at that point, I wasn't really used to an EVF yet, because this is many years ago. This was the A99, a year before it was released. I had the camera, and the weird thing was, I just put it towards my eyes, and I was, immediately saw it, try my exposure compensation, and the image came out perfect. And that was the moment that I knew, in the future, cameras with live views, with what you see is what you get, that will be the future. Because it's so incredibly easy. And for street and travel photography, using a camera that has image emulation is great. Because what you see is what you get, approximately. Same here, Dubai, people just love being photographed. And this is, of course, is Vegas again. San Francisco. And this guy had a lot of fun, and I actually shot him out of pure frustration because he's laughing because we just paid $60 for parking for only 2 hours. And I asked him if it was a mistake, and he said, no, everybody asked that. And I said, okay, for $60 I also want a shot. And sometimes it's just the right moment. This guy was awesome. This is many years ago, actually. And I saw these two dolls in the window, and I took a shot of it. And he came running out, sir, sir, sir. And I was just going like, whoa, sorry if I took a shot. I can delete it if you want. No, 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 one moment. You also have to see the other doll. And he came out with the other doll, the red one, Pelosi? I don't know. I know the other one is Donald Trump, of course. And he just put them next to each other. And I said, can I take your head too? Yeah, of course. And so sometimes they see a photographer and they come out and they start screaming at you, don't take a shot. And it's up to you how to diffuse that. And sometimes they come screaming out like, hey, I have something more fun. Be prepared for both. Both are fun. On the street, Nuts for Nuts. I just love the name. And again here, I somehow are drawn to Chinatowns, the more gritty areas of Los Angeles, New York, and somehow those smaller stores where you have a lot of colors and colorful people. I just love shooting that. And I know that for a lot of people that look at these shots, they go like, it's just a person in a store. I know it. I know it. But for me, it tells a story, and it is also a capture of that moment in time. And I think that's, for me, the most important thing. Make it interesting, tell the story, and of course also connect it to my own feelings that I had at that moment. This is in a store where they didn't want to be photographed at first. Same here. And the thing is, don't shoot it. And I have the same thing with somebody who owns a ghost town. He's later on in the slides. What I try to do, if I go into a store and I find it interesting, I don't want to ruin it. So you can do two things. Let's say you go into a store like this, the pawn shop, right? And you want to shoot the images. You can do a few things. You can go in and start shooting. Now the owner comes up to you and they go like, hey, you can't shoot it, get out. At that point, you have to go out. Even if you want to buy something, you can of course try to diffuse the situation by, hey, sorry dude, I'm not going to do it again, I want to buy something. But there's already this motion of friction. What I found out that in most cases, 99% of the cases, when you walk up to somebody that works there with your camera on the side and you go like, hey, I'm a tourist, I love your store, man. There's so much detail. I'm from the Netherlands, by the way. Hey, my name is Frank. How's your name? Oh, Paul. Hey, great, Paul. Nice to meet you, Paul. Great. Do you work here? Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit about the store? Yeah, sure. It was started in... At that moment, you're not a photographer anymore. You are an acquaintance. Great, Paul. Awesome. And do you like working here? Yeah, of course. Oh, man, I would love... Hey, do you mind if I take some pictures? It's just for myself. Done. And that works in 99% of the cases. I did it in a lot of comic book stores, and they all liked me shooting there. I never got a no. I got a no once. And you know that's incredibly dumb. You never know who's in the store. A store has a lot of benefits by having pictures online for the very simple reason people see the pictures and they go like, hey, that's interesting. Oh, look at that guitar. Where is that? I want that guitar. Oh, it's over there, and people go and buy it. So declining a photographer to shoot in your store is actually very dumb because it's free advertising. So one comic book store said no. Okay, done. I didn't buy anything, I just went. I went to the next comic book store. Sure, take some pictures. You know, if you take some pictures, where are you from? I said, I'm from the Netherlands. Great. What do you like? Batman. And he grabbed a comic book box. He said, you know what, if you take some great pictures, everything in here I double. And they were all $1 comics, of course. So I took out 10 comics and he said, okay, find 10 more in change for the shots. That's the way it, not supposed to work, of course. But he got it, because if he put those images online and I put those images online, it can draw maybe one customer. Even if it's one customer can bring in another, And if you have a public store, what's the problem with having some pictures online? People pay for that with Google. So don't be an ass if you're a shop owner. Same here. People, in the end, they just love it. And as you can see here, she didn't mind me shooting it at all. Sometimes they even pose with her cheeses, as you can see here. And this was the guy with the ghost town. He didn't want to get shot at all. But by just talking about the ghost town, how the hell did you end up with the ghost town, dude? He just told me his whole life story. It took 15 minutes. Then I walked away, turned around like Columbo, and I said, I forgot something. Can I buy a Coke? Yeah, of course. So I bought a Coke, turned around again, walked away. I turned around one final time and said, you know what? I love the story. Can I take your picture? To be honest, the whole setup was not to take that picture. The whole setup was to get to know somebody, to get to know something about that ghost town. But in the end, in the back of my mind, there was always this question. I want to take his picture. I want to take his picture. I was listening, but I was constantly thinking, I also want to shoot this guy. I love his looks. And in the end, he even posed for me. So that's the difference between being an acquaintance or just an annoying photographer. And sometimes you shoot somebody that you don't know that's an important person. Like I was shooting in a comic book store and he actually said, oh, do you also want to shoot me? And I was like, sure. And I took his picture. I still don't know who he is, by the way, but somebody told me he was pretty well known in the comic book scene. So great. Extra bonus. Or the two owners of the world's largest thermometer. Yeah, I was shooting the thermometer and I liked the scale, but I wanted to have it a little bit more extra scale. So I just went inside and I just asked some questions about, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about the thermometer? And I was hoping that maybe somebody that worked there would actually be willing to pose for it. And you know what? The guess? It were the owners, so that was even better. They told me everything about the thermometer, and they just went outside and, can I hold my husband? Yeah, sure. And we took the shot, sent it to them. Great, so next time I'm there, we can see the heat on the world's largest thermometer. This was in Santa Monica, and believe it or not, this is a true story, this is real. I saw this and I was going like, this is interesting. But what? This must be a joke, right? And it's not. You can find it online. This guy told me the whole story. And this is the cool thing about being a photographer, guys. You can't even imagine. It's not about those images. It's about the stories connected to those images. Because the images are great for me, for you maybe. But the stories, that's what it's all about. Because that's what you remember. So what did he tell me? At one night he was sitting in his couch in his room and he heard a noise outside and there was this meteorite, and out of the meteorite came, I kid you not, this is not a joke, came a bear, a teddy bear or something, and he said, if you don't make me the president to save the human race, I will bite you. And he bit him, and then he said, I will make you president of the United States. Maybe in the end that would have been better, but I don't know. Now, if you think this is a joke, and I thought it was a joke, I thought the guy was crazy, I went back to my friends where we stayed, and I showed them the pictures. Oh, you talked to him? And I was, you talked to him? Yeah. I said, is he crazy? No, he's not crazy. He really believes that, and he's actually running for a position, as you can see here. All the presidents are there, and in the end, yes, his favorite president. The story is great. The images are okay, but if you combine it, you have something great to tell people during a boring evening of just watching images, right? And you can write a blog post about it or whatever. It's just some nice information to share. The others, this is the part where I'm a little bit in doubt, like, should I include this into a workshop? Isn't this taking advantage of people? Maybe not, maybe yes. I like to see contrast in my images with lighting, but also with persons. Like, for example, here, the big car, and then somebody next to it has to sell cans to make a living. Insane. The naked cowboy, of course, you have to shoot him, but if I'm in the picture with him, doesn't say anything. But when he's looking another way with two people, that's more a story instead of just a selfie. Because now I can also include, of course, everything in the back, as you can see here. This one, I just loved his outfit, so I just took the image with the elephant on his head and the red boots. Weird. This one I wanted to shoot from a slightly different angle, but as you remember, I always tell people shoot first and then compose, because maybe the shot is gone. At the moment I took this shot, a lot of people came out of a bus and the shot was gone, done. So I only got this one. This moment I wouldn't shoot this one anymore, but I somehow I just also like it. especially in combination with this one. It's from everywhere. So yeah. Now, this was actually the reason I stopped shooting homeless people, because at first when you see somebody that's homeless, it's easy to point your camera and create a dramatic shot. But sometimes you need an overstimulation to realize that's not what you want to do. And that's for me when I got with a friend to Tent City in Los Angeles. I said I want some real gritty shots, and he didn't prepare me. I thought he was going to graffiti, gang areas or whatever, so that's what I wanted to do. Some real nice gritty shots, maybe a little bit more off the normal roads. He brought me to Tent City, and what I saw there, at one point I just said, you know what, I'm sick to my stomach. I want to leave. I don't want to shoot it anymore. This, by the way, side note, there's nothing wrong here, but this is manipulation. You see that it's black and white, so you think he maybe gets shot. It's not. This shot was done out of the car. He was drunk. And I don't know the guy, by the way. We just drove by. But he was drunk, just laying there going, oh. And in color, the image was a little bit blurred and just a lot of noise. It didn't look right. And this is where the joke actually started. Make it black and white, add a lot of grain, and you have instant art. And here it just looked like somebody got shot. So with color and manipulation, you can literally change the narrative of your shot. This is why I love tinting my images. It just gives the mood. But this is Tent City. The reason I didn't like Tent City is because these people are all homeless and literally dying on the streets. If you see one, you can get away with that. And it feels bad, but you know. But if you see so many people, at one point you just go like, this is insane. I don't want to shoot this anymore. I just want to go home. And in the end, we stopped and went home. So yeah, I only took 3 shots or so. This one I do like, because if you look very closely, who's the one that's pregnant? You get it? A little bit of humor. Through the window, something that you should never do, of course, because if you shoot through the window, you can't take great images. Of course you can. Make sure the window is clean or it's really dirty, so you can get some really nice effects like here or here. This is a dirty window. Look at the reflections. I love it. And you get unique perspectives. Something you can never shoot normally. And of course, you can shoot a lot more, because normally you have to stop, take a picture, get into the car, drive, stop, get in. So I would normally ask, like, can you clean the window really well? And I will just sit next to the driver and I would just shoot through the window and get some great shots that way. And maybe they're not as perfect as if you would have gone outside, but you get way more. And especially when you're on vacation, you want to make sure that you survive vacation, right? So these were all shot through the window. Some are interesting, some are a little bit more boring, but I think it gives you a pretty nice overview from what you can do. So don't shoot only outside the car, also shoot through. I love those. Okay. Reflections, talked about it a little bit. Let's go a little bit more. These were not done in Photoshop. They're all just lucky shots or just something that I literally planned. And in this case, it's all about the reflections in the windows. So look at those. As you can see here, it's a little bit overlaying or reflections in your mirrors from your car. Here you can see somebody looking in. Well, people are sitting in. It's the chaos, the combination of colors. It all blends together in, for me, a piece of art. And it's almost abstract, you know. And you have to be really lucky to get something like this. I only got one where I go like, this is my favorite one. All the other ones are great or funny. This one I absolutely love. And animals. As a dog owner and lover, of course, I love animals. So when I'm on the streets, I always try to find some animals. And the cool thing is, dog owners or pet owners are often very, very friendly people. And they will let the animal pose for you, or they will pose with the pet. You can get some great shots and make friends. Because let's be honest, who doesn't want to cuddle something like this? And yes, sometimes the owner really looks like his dog, right? Isn't it funny? This was on the boat, I believe in Norway. And this was not staged, by the way. I wanted to shoot the dog, and I was already in position, and then the door opened, and I was click. He said, do I do it again? I said, no, I got a shot. So, great. This was one of those moments where Henri thought she was smart to help somebody else with an RV. This was in, I believe, Norway or Sweden. And there were a lot of sheep on the road. And one tip, don't go out of your RV to help another RV that's stuck because of the sheep. Because before we knew it, we had sheep in the RV almost. Henri was running around with sheep behind her and both RVs got stuck. So we could have probably better just hung the horn and got them away. Now, if you know me a little bit, you know that big part of my life and big part of everybody's life should be humor. So why not put it into your photography, right? Let's go. Humor can be very subtle. And in this case, it doesn't really trigger my funny bone. But it's funny, but it should actually be in the images for the animals. So let's up the ante a little bit and make it a little bit more fun. Like, for example, these two. You know that moment when you go into the sea and you come back and your seats are taken by those really annoying people, but they're bigger than you? Well, if you hire these two, not gonna happen anymore. Because these are real mafia. Or not. In all honesty, all these shots are not staged. They are literally straight out of camera. If I would have been 10 seconds later, or maybe 2 seconds later, this shot would have not happened because the birds flew away. It was literally only a few milliseconds. And sometimes you have time, like, what? Regular and decaf for a dog? Funny. Now, this one, for Dutch people, may take a little bit longer to get the joke. Americans, English people, will get it right away. But not yet. This is a beautiful hotel. It's literally placed with a beautiful lake. It's amazing. It would have been one of my favorite places to go. The weird part is, we booked a hotel 500 meters further away from the lake, and a lot less nice. So why is this hotel empty? I don't know. Now I know. It's a bad hotel. Now, in the Netherlands, bad hotel actually means bath. So meaning you take a bath. In all honesty, I wouldn't call my hotel bad hotel. Because if you look at Trivago, you see bad hotel and you go, maybe some people don't read anymore. It's common. And they just think it's a bad hotel. Of course, this is a little bit of a joke, but you know what I mean. Or, yeah, I don't know if this is the most interesting shot, but hey, they want it, let's do it. Or Wi-Fi here in a phone cell. Okay, cool. Or of course, sometimes you need to recharge after a day of photography. And sometimes in stores with the prices nowadays, you just beg for life. Sometimes it's more subtle, like the little things that are not 100%, like an English breakfast. I don't know what it is, but it must be breakfast. Or how about this? Bloody good offers on. Yeah, there are countries where you can't do that. Or how about this one? You would have said, I would have photoshopped this, but it's not. Bacon is our God, because bacon is real. United Church of Bacon. Godless, so are we. You can't make this stuff up that they put it next to each other on a sign. Insane, right? And again, look at this. I included everything so you can see where it was shot. Las Vegas. You see it? Small details, just get it in. Like the tower, you can place where it is. And of course, if you're local, you know immediately where it is. If you're not, you can find it online. Now, this one you have to remember. It's great to be terrible, you know it. And this is inside a supermarket. So you might wonder, as a tourist, what the hell's going on here? Let me go back to that later. Sometimes the joke needs to be explained, like this one. I don't get it. But if I explain to you, this is where skateboarders can break their legs, do you think it's funny? I don't think it's funny, but the guy that showed me around said it's funny, so I took a shot. And in all honesty, I still don't get it. But the next one he showed me, and I'm forever grateful, because this one is awesome. The only problem is, if I show it like this, remember storytelling, finding the right angles, finding the right connection with your viewers? This one doesn't do anything, right? Or does it? Do you already see it? Probably not. But when I shoot it from a different angle, you probably will see it. Or still not. No? Okay, let me explain. Look at the first one. If you connect your boat with a rope to the first one, it will not drift away for the very simple reason it's locked, right? The rope goes under here, the boat can't go away. Now look at all the other ones. If you place a rope on it, the boat will just drift away because it isn't connected. This was a huge mistake from the local authorities. It cost them, I believe, 250,000 euros to replace. They placed them the wrong way around. This is cool if you have a local photographer showing you around because they know. I would have never found this one and I just love it. Humor can also be a little bit more staged and not. In this case, it's actually not staged. Halloween. Everybody's dressed up and I just love that the police was inside and the thieves or the criminals are outside. Fun. Or how about walking around for hours being totally dead tired, 45 degrees, maybe a little bit less, but it was hot, no water, and then you find something like this, no swimming. Are you bloody serious? Like, no. Or how about this, new home? Build your own home from cardboards. The only problem with this one, I wouldn't place it so close to the water. On the other side, you wake up, you roll down, you washed, you get out, and you go into your living room. It's easy. Now, remember the terribles? That must have been a stoner thought. Like, man, you know what? If I create a company that's called Terribles, everybody that's next to us will be terrible. Well, normally you don't do it. They actually did. McDonald's, terrible. But remember what I told you guys about finding the right angles? This might not be as obvious unless you shoot it from the other side. Now it's much more obvious. So moving around, changing your angles can tell the story a little bit better. Know your locations, especially with locals. Like for example, in Las Vegas, there's this restaurant and it's awesome. It's called the Heart Attack Grill. And I didn't know about it, but somebody told me like, hey, they even have an ambulance in front. It's great to take some photos. Now, the cool thing about the Heart Attack Grill is it's not really on... It is on a touristy spot, but it's more a little bit on the back. So when you normally walk there, you probably don't find the Heart Attack Grill. I was glad that I did because I'm a movie buff. I love movies. And everything inside the Heart Attack Grill is with a spin on movies. But everything is about being fat, being big, and eating very, very unhealthy. I ordered the Diet Coke and I got spanked. So imagine that. The funny thing is, and this is hilarious, if you weigh over 350 pounds, you eat for free. And now comes the funny part, because that's actually not funny. That's actually horrendous. The funny part is, if you finish your meal and you order something else, I kid you not, you have to weigh again. If you are again over 350, you get it for free. Now, guys, listen. If I weigh 350 pounds before dinner, do you really think I weigh less after dinner? And they don't get it. They are standing on the stair. Oh, yeah, I get my food for free. No, dude. You are making fun of yourself because everybody sees it. It's public. In fact, when you don't finish your plate, they come around with spanking materials. And that's voluntary. You get spanked. But inside, it's just awesome. You get these gowns on. And when you order like something with alcohol, you get these driplets from, infuse, you know what I mean, right? The bags. And you see all the movie posters in the back? It's all about 1 million years, 1 million calories, right? And it's splattered over with all those posters. So if you're ever in Las Vegas, make sure you check out the Heart Attack Grill. It's awesome. But as a movie buff, I also love movie locations. And I knew from Amityville that the address wasn't 100% correct in the books and in the movies. It's actually another address. So we went to Amityville because we wanted to see the house. Now, we knew the house was totally renovated. So probably we wouldn't recognize it anymore. Now, the thing is, if you don't want your house to draw attention, what we do in Europe is very simple. We make sure that the house blends in with everything else. So whatever we do, we don't draw attention to our house. That's why in the books, it's a totally different address. It's still on Ocean Drive, but it's, I believe, 4 something and it's actually 3 something. So if you go to the original address, it's totally different from what you find in the book. You will never find the original one. Somebody told me the original address. In all honesty, you probably would have found it anyway. Look at this, big signs, don't cross, nothing here, don't look. Of course you're gonna look then, right? Because all the other houses look normal. As you can see here, the house doesn't look scary. In black and white, maybe a little bit. I like this shot, in black and white, better than in color. But we miss those nice eyes. And this is again where the locals come in. They told me already, don't shoot the front of the house, go to the back. Drive all the way around. There's a little of an, how do you call it, water. And on the other side of the water, you can see the house and then you see the eyes. And indeed, it's still not that iconic house, but this one looks a little bit better. And this got me a little bit more into that Amityville. Now, this is of course something that's for a movie buff. If you are like me, liking the Amityville series, you will like these shots. If you're not interested in that, it's just normal shots. The tip in this is find the locals to show you around, because they know all the areas, they know all the in and outs, and know that if you shoot it from a different angle, it looks a lot better. Or find people that have unique capabilities. When we were in Norway, one of the guys that showed us around had his own boat, and he said, well, my brother or his brother-in-law, I don't remember, he's working for the rescue, and they just got a new chopper. And he told me a story where the old chopper actually would lose parts, and they had 2 choppers to build one. I think he overreacted a little bit. But he said, do you mind to be on the boat while they are testing the new chopper? And I said, 100% yes. I bought a 70-200. I could have shot everything with a 24-70, because look at this. Isn't it awesome to be witness of a real staged rescue? Because you never can get that close. And this is when you know local people. They will help you out and they will get you great shots. And again, it's very easy with Facebook nowadays. Just put a call out on Facebook. Do be a little bit careful. If you're a young lady, I wouldn't put it out like, hey, yeah, just show me around. But if you're like me or a family, why not use social media? We literally ended up with great friends many years thanks to social media. Bad conditions. Now, a lot of people will stay home when it's snowing. I am too. Or when it's raining. When I'm on a holiday, I will not stay home when it's raining, because bad conditions are the best conditions to shoot. Look at this, because nobody takes shots like this. I don't mean that arrogantly, but I mean normally people will wait till the weather is nice. Local people will shoot it when it's really bad, or tourists will shoot it when it's really bad, but they will shoot it like, oh man, it's bad, let's just take a quick shot. When you have a professional photographer shooting it under bad conditions, you can get really interesting shots, and shots that are not standard. That's what I love to do. Not that I'm a great photographer, but with street and travel, but you know what I mean, right? The other thing is, when you are shooting in blistering rain, people don't mention or don't mind you at all. They just want to get home as clean as possible, and they just walk around. And that's easy for a photographer. You can just aim and shoot. And again, reflections are so awesome with street and travel photography when it rains. And I love this one. This is a person to my heart. The dog has the umbrella and she will get wet. Don't you just love people like that? Dogs are the best gift we have. I like this for the angle in the building, but also the yellow umbrella. Somehow it drew my attention. When I look at it now, I go like, why did I include it? Probably because he's standing in front of the yellow with the yellow umbrella. But some images just do something for you and you can't explain why. It's just interesting. I just love this one with the umbrella collapses. Yeah, sure. In the metro. And here actually a friend of mine said, I'm so sorry I brought you to the lighthouse in these bad conditions. And I was just going like, dude, all the images I see online from this lighthouse are with blue skies, fluffy clouds. This is where a lighthouse was intended to work. So I love this shot. So bad conditions, no problem at all. Now, when you have snow, sometimes, like it's now in the Netherlands, you don't need to do this trick at all. You can shoot it on a wide angle and it looks like it's snowing. But if it's just barely snowing, like here, you only have a few flocks and you go like, I want to make it more interesting, compress. if you use a wide angle, the snow will disappear. It will just be white. But if you want to show the snow, compress the scene with a longer lens. For example, a 70mm, 200mm, even better. Because if you compress it, you will start to see all the snow. The problem is, as you can see here, some snowflakes will be really large and some will be smaller. But that's because you compress. Most normal people won't see that problem and they will just go like, wow, it snowed. We as photographers look at this shot and go like, you compressed the heck out of it to make it snow. Yes. And again, rain through the window, because I'm not going out when it rains this hard. Now, during our photo walk in Amsterdam a few years ago, we had this weird experience. It started to rain like crazy. And this happened about, let's say, the whole photo walk was about 2 hours. And after, I think, 50 minutes, 45 minutes, it started to rain cats and dogs. It was really, really bad. Part of my group, I believe we started with 40 people at that moment, 30 people went back. And only a small group continued with me. The funny part was that, because it was after 50 or 45 minutes, our route was actually going a little bit more forward, then to the left, and then back through Chinatown and back to Central Station. The group that left us, we actually met up again at Central Station because they were still waiting there. If you are a photographer, don't be afraid for wet clothes. Don't be afraid to get sick. Don't be afraid for uncomfortable situations. Of course, don't risk your life. That's without saying. But if it rains and you already walked 45 minutes and you're already totally wet, continue to walk. Because if you go back, you walk the same route back, you miss all the nice shots you get there, and in the end you stand on Central Station being cold, wet, and you don't have any images. I'm at Central Station wet, cold, tired, and I have images. And the wash machine will make sure that my clothes are dry again the next day. So don't be afraid of rain. As you can see here, it just gives you awesome creative shots, totally different from normal situations. I actually love it when it rains. As you can see here, everything just starts to reflect on the floor. And that's something that you miss during daytime or when it's not raining. Then everything just looks bland and normal. As soon as it rains, you get these beautiful reflections. There's nothing wrong with it. Theme parks, I hate it. Absolutely, I hate theme parks. But I love it if it can be a little bit more creative. Like, for example, we went to, and this theme park I actually liked, Kennedy Space Center, I believe. And I just tried to do stuff differently. So I'm just going to show you the shots. So this was all shot at the Space Center. And I try to take shots where I don't see the audience. So that means sometimes strange positions, wide angles, and really, really dark, because they don't see the audience. And of course, sometimes it also means laying on the floor and just aiming your camera up. Now, if you ever went to this exhibition, it's awesome. Try to get those shots from slightly different angles. I found out that at first I just shot it from I's perspective. I looked at it while having lunch and I just didn't like the shots. We went back, or I went back, took some other shots, and these are actually the shots that I liked a lot more. Like, for example, here from the floor up. This one is okay, but you know, I don't know. This one I just like a lot more. Universal, this I absolutely hate. Don't get me wrong, I love Universal movies, I love the theme park, but it's not for me. And you know why? I was standing an hour in line for a ride. We went in the basket and we were taken out because I was too tall and Henri was almost too tall. So what did they tell me? You can get a ticket for free, so you don't have to wait for the next ride. And I said, isn't there the same limitation for height? Yes. So I just waited 1 hour, I got a ticket, and every ride has the same height limitation. Yeah, you can give the ticket away. So we just gave it away to somebody. But in all honesty, if you can't do the rides, or most of the rides, and you're not interested in roller coasters, it becomes a challenge to get great shots, right? So Universal, great, but let's make it a little bit more interesting by going to Main Street, or that's Disney, of course, but making a little bit more fun. And some close-ups. Or as you are like me, I love Universal Monsters, and there's this great restaurant called the Universal Monster Restaurant, my favorite restaurant in whole Universal. But mostly because they are statues of the Universal Monsters. Now you can just shoot them normally, or you can use your wide angle, use reflections, use different angles, find it. So let's take a look at some of those shots. These were all shot in the restaurant. And as you can see, it's just interesting for me. It's the reflections, and sometimes you can even play. Now this was not in the restaurant, by the way. The next images are actually shot in an exhibition. And this one I especially liked. You know that from the start off, I've been talking about angles, finding the right position to shoot, telling the story. Now look at what I did here. You can see the mother in the front, but in the back you see Alfred Hitchcock with his hands. And it's all aligned. Now, I would have loved to have his hands a little bit more to the left. That was not possible because then I had this huge reflection from the outside window. So remember that in these sets you are very, very limited because everything on glass reflects. Angle of incidence is angle of reflection. So although I like the shot, it would have been better if it was just a little bit more to the left. But hey, I still like it. And that's the cool thing. Find something that's uninteresting, like this exhibition, and then when you take the shot, somebody looks at your screen and go like, huh? That's interesting. Wow, I never saw it like that. And that's the cool part, when it looks boring and you as a photographer create something that's interesting. Now, of course, in this case, as you can see here, this is how it was displayed. So everything around it is cluttered, and then just try to find exactly the right angle to make it a little bit more, well, like staged, like these shots. This looks almost like staged shots. Okay, comics. I love comics. And that also means that sometimes we visit places that sell comics, but we don't want to go to normal comic book stores. We try to find special locations that I want to share with you guys. This is in New York, and officially this is not allowed for visitors. This is like a wholesale thing or collectors. And this is amazing. So a friend of mine said, just go there, and said that I sent you. So we came in, we were immediately sent out until I said, hey man, I'm here for Richie. And he sent me here, and that was, oh great, walk around. Now look at this. Isn't this like a dream for people that love comics? And don't get me wrong, one of those boxes can contain comics that are over 10,000 euros or 100,000 euros, especially when you find something that's really unique. Just imagine number one Superman, $3.6 million. I saw comics there that literally were 10,000 euros, and they're just scattered around. And in normal stores, everything is nicely organized, like Batman, Superman, or ABC. These stores are insane. They have everything, and it's like Indiana Jones going through. And again, these shots are in here for your fun. These are not really great photography shots, because this is, again, where I go like, wow, this is amazing, and I just take the shots. And I don't even think about it. I just register. But I did want to include them in because they are such unique locations. Flea markets, this is where I am a little bit more wary of how I shoot, because flea markets we visit a lot because it's great for props for your photo studio, and it's great for comics, guitars, old gear. Flea markets are great. So this is where I have a little bit more experience by finding out what I like. And again, humor. If you have to ask what it is, get out. Clear, right? I like people. I like weird people. And in this case, weird people I can say because he's wearing something weird. And also colors and combinations of stuff. We don't see this a lot, so this is immediately drawing my eyes, and when it's drawing my eyes, I try to get a great shot with the camera. But most of all, colors. Colors and people, things that stand out, like he's looking at the necklace, all these old radios. Somebody just, I don't know what's there, maybe he misses his backbone or something, he's just laying in his chair, love it. Just before the deal, colors, just sitting in his car, just looking over. And we found B.A. Baracus. There we go, the A-team is complete again. This one is the only guy in this whole seminar, actually in my whole portfolio, that didn't give me permission. And you know why he's in there? And I don't want to say it out loud, but you know what I'm thinking probably. It starts with an A and ends with an S. So, two S's I want to say. I was walking around, not pointing my camera towards him, just having my camera on the side. And he started shouting at me, "Hey, a-hole, if you take my picture, I'm going to kill you." I said, "Dude, I'm not shooting you." "No, you don't even." And when he started pointing, I just took up my camera and shot him. I took the camera down and I said, "So, what do you want to do?" And he just looked at me going like, "Ruh, ruh, ruh." If you do something like that to a photographer, don't. Because well, I'm a big guy. Don't do it if you're small and the guy is bigger. But in this case, don't be an ass. And there is a story connected to this. A while ago with a friend of mine, I was walking through Amsterdam and there was this booth, a sale on the market with a lot of cheeses. But there was one thing that was even more than the cheeses, and that were all the signs, "Don't take any photos." And as a photographer, of course, that triggers my imagination. I go like, why? Why so many signs, "Don't take photos"? Because in all honesty, I'm not going to do it. But there are a lot of people that will go like, "Oh, so many signs, let's take a picture." It actually triggered me too. So I started talking to the guy. And at first, he was pretty not nice. Let me put it this way. He wasn't aggressive, but absolutely not nice. And he didn't really want to talk to a photographer, I think. But I said, just explain to me. Why all the signs? He said, "I'm not going to take a picture. I'm not here to harass you, but I'm interested." And he said, "Okay, I will tell you." He said, "For years, there's been this old lady from over there, and she always came here to get some cheese. And I gave her cheese for free because I love the lady. And a few weeks ago, she got a heart attack, and she fell down on the floor. And you know how many people stand around with their phones taking pictures? Now, this is the point where you have to take notice and respectfully respond. My response, and this was the honest truth and also meant, "Oh my God, that's horrendous." And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, what do you mean?" I said, "When somebody gets a heart attack, you don't take a picture, you call 911, or in our case, 112. I said, "You help people. What is going on in those minds? Those are not professional photographers." And we started talking about everything, and 5 minutes later, he was giving us cheese, and he actually told me, "Take a picture of my booth." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "Because I have a lot of followers online. When I put the picture online with all the signs, 'Don't take any photos,' one, it will hurt my reputation because people will go like, 'Frank, you always tell people to follow the rules, not make people angry, and now you do something like this.'" He said, "And the second thing is, if somebody sees my picture and they come at your booth, they also will take those pictures." And he said, "I like you." And I said, "You don't have to like me, but the next time you see a photographer, don't start shouting, but also imagine that they can be like us." So we went back with, I believe, 500 grams of cheese per person. Great cheese, by the way. And somebody that now maybe thinks a little bit different about photographers. Did I take my shot? No, I did not. For the very simple reason that I just explained. He doesn't want it, respect it. But I hope that by talking to him, I just opened up his mind a little bit for photographers that also just follow the rules. Again, colors, I just love that stuff. And cameras, as a photographer, we always find some cool cameras on flea markets. And weird stuff, I just love flea markets. You see the weirdest stuff, man. Sometimes it's junk, but most of the time you find some real gems. And it's always great to take photos. Now, this was one time when I was on a flea market and there was this guy in a really nice outfit, like a cowboy. And I really liked his outfit and I wanted to take a picture of him. And I just asked him and he said, "No." I said, "Okay, no problem." And he said, "But why do you want to take a picture?" And now I'm not proud of this because I did lie a little bit, but sometimes that helps. I said, "Dude, it's very simple. You don't want to be in the picture, I'm not going to take a picture. But I want to explain to you why. I teach photography, and that's the honest truth. The only thing is I don't teach children." And I said I teach photography also to children. I said, and one of the most difficult things for people growing up is to break the barrier between being able to ask somebody or just blatantly point the camera towards somebody. I said, and what I explain in my classes is if you are nice to people and you talk to people, they often don't have any problem with you shooting them. The moment you just start shooting, that's when you got into trouble. I said, so that's what I try to do. So when I take photos on flea markets, I use them in my slideshows, I use them online to tell people about how you approach people. So thank you very much, but I just wanted to explain to it. And he said, you know what? Shoot me. This is exactly the way that it's supposed to be. Take away that barrier from people that think that photographers are only there to point a camera in your face and take a shot. De-escalate, and you get great shots and you end up with great friendships. Another viewpoint. Try to get a little bit higher up or lower, of course. But a different viewpoint can get you great shots. And of course, manipulating your shots. Now, this is straight out of the camera. It's interesting. But when I make it black and white and change my position and use a different lens, it becomes much more interesting. See the difference? The cross is almost, well, it's not almost as big as the church, but the other two crosses are almost as big as the church. And the one in the front it's large, but it's not really big. When I go here, that is huge. And the crosses in the back have different heights, and that church in the back is really small and far away. Is it? Oh yeah, it's much. This is changing your perspective by using a different angle. Nothing more. And now make it a little bit more with a vignette and a little bit blurry, and you get some great shots. Personally, I love this one. Same here. I tried in Norway to shoot all that power of nature, and it just didn't work. I ended up with boring images until I started really zooming in and really getting close to everything. That was the moment that I really got shots that I liked. And these are some examples of that. But it's just too large. It's too big. You can't capture it with one photo. It's impossible. So you just zoom in. And of course, sometimes you need something to start your vlog or your blog or your photo album. And what's better than to have a subway cup on a subway station, right? And of course, drones. But before we go there, I have to pick something up. And my drink is up, so I'm gonna grab a new drink. And then we're gonna show you a little bit about our sponsor. And BenQ, of course, has been our sponsor for many years. So I'm gonna show you which monitor I use in a little video. I will be back in about 2 minutes. Yep, and it really matters. Now, recently I saw a post online, and I do want to address this. Why should we calibrate our monitors when our clients use uncalibrated monitors? this is a question that comes back every single time when we talk about calibration, and it's actually not that hard to realize. Now, let me take a very, very simple example, and that's music. Let's say that the standard for music is 0 decibels. It's not, but let's say it's 0 decibels. So everybody that records music and masters music will put it on 0 decibels. Meaning, if you listen to Spotify, if you listen to Deezer or Apple Music, all the music has exactly the same volume. So when you switch over from Queen to Steve Vai, no problem, the music is the same. Now, when I walk the dog, I'm using AirPods and I'm having them on a very low volume with noise cancelling off. So I hear everything, but just in the back I hear a little bit of music. For me, that's great. When I'm sitting in the garden and having a great time in the sun and not having anything to worry about and I have my AirPods in, I have my volume a lot higher. But still, all the songs have the same volume, meaning I can sit down and relax and I don't have to change the volume every single time. It's what you're used to. What if everybody just does something? Some do 3 decibels, some do -10, some do +100. It clips like crazy, you don't hear anything, right? So when you calibrate your monitor, what you do as a professional photographer is you make sure that red is red, blue is blue, green is green, and all the colors in between are correct. And that happens with 3 coordinates, the X, the Y, and the big Y, hue, saturation, luminance. Where luminance is a very important part of how your colors are perceived, so use a light meter. If you make sure that your images are calibrated correctly, everybody that sees it on the display that they are used to will see that image is correct. Meaning if my display shows too much blue, I'm used to too much blue. So when I see an image from you, and you don't calibrate your monitor, and you also have way too much blue, I look at my image and I go like, oh, that looks horrendous, it's way too red, because you probably turned down the blue to make it more natural. So, as a professional photographer, you should always, without any exception, calibrate your workflow and use something like a light meter or a color checker, or if the most simplest thing, use a gray or white balance card to make sure that the white balance is correct, your exposure is correct, and you calibrate on a calibrated monitor. What your client has absolutely no sense for you. You have to make sure that your images are conform to the standard. The client, if he's used to a black and white monitor, he will look on a black and white monitor and will judge it as, yeah, this is great because it looks like everything else. The problem is nowadays a lot of photographers don't use color checkers anymore, laugh at the light meter, and the quality of photography is going down like a roller coaster. Very simple example. Anna Week ordered a red sweater and a red scarf a few years ago. On the catalog they looked exactly the same. They came in and we sent them back for the very simple reason they didn't fit at all. It was like burgundy red and something like an orangey red. The problem is you might say, well, you can send it back, right? How about the impact on the environment? You know that all that is sent back is destroyed? So think about this. Hire a professional photographer and a professional designer to create a catalog and sell everything and don't get it back? Or, well, save 100 euros and get all your stuff back because the colors aren't right. I don't get it. Hire a professional photographer, right? Drones. Oh, I love drones. I'm still afraid when I fly, but I absolutely love drones. And they give you such a totally different look. So let's take some shots with a drone. You can go up and, for example, photograph where you are standing with your RV. This is in Norway again. Or you can just fly over nature. And what I like to do actually with drones is, this is by the way our roundabout. What I try to do with drones is do panoramic shots. So I'm still working with the DJI Mavic Pro 2. And the normal resolution isn't that high. It's great, but it's, I believe, 24 megapixels. What I try to do is take 20 or 25 shots in a panoramic shot. And the DJI has a great option for this. And that creates a super high resolution image. And the main advantage is I'm afraid of heights. And I'm always, when I'm flying with my drone, I get this gibbery feeling. And when I want to take a great shot, I have to be at 100 meters high, take the shot, and then I'm just standing there going, oh my God, I'm going to lose my drone. By using panoramic shots, one, I get a little bit less high, so I can get up to 40 meters high or 50 meters high, but I also get a much wider look. Now in this seminar there are no panoramic shots with, oh by the way, this is a panoramic shot with a drone, thank you. So this is all standard, and this is panoramic. This is emerald, and if I want to take a shot like this, I had to move the drone, I think, a kilometer more, to maybe 10 kilometers more to the back. But by using a panoramic shot, it actually just sweeps over, goes down, sweeps over again, goes down and sweeps over again. Sounds terrifying if it rains or if it is a little bit windy, because you hear the drone literally just correcting itself, and that scares the bejesus out of me. But it gets you great shots like this, and it's super high resolution. And this is without, as you can see here, you can see that 16 by 9 is the panoramic, this is the standard. Now this is in emerald, and in all honesty, now that I have my license, I know that this was probably not all too legal. But at that point, this was with my first drone, and there were no really any rules about flying in a city, or at least not that I know. Nowadays everything has changed, of course, but this is maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. Also a panoramic shot. Again, if I would have shot this without a panoramic shot, I would have ended up with a very small resolution for the houses, and I would have moved it all the way back over the lake. And in all honesty, this was already very scary, because it was above the water, maybe 20 meters, 30 meters above the water, and I was already going like, oh. But by getting a panoramic shot, you don't have to go that far. This is a standard shot, as you can see here. But the drone, I just love those shots. It gives you a totally different look. Now, all these shots are pretty standard, but when you start doing it when the tulips are coming out of the ground, you get these really nice colors in our area, as you can see here. And now the drone shots become more interesting. Do you see it's about the subject that you capture? I love the one with emerald, like in this one. I love this one. This one is okay. This one is a little bit... I don't like it because it's during daytime. It's more like, okay, this is Urk, great. This is okay. This is okay. But this one really draws your eyes. And then with this one, with the figurine, this is great. The only thing is I would have loved to go a little bit higher, but I believe this was already at 125 meters. And get a little bit more of that angle in. But again, I'm very nervous when I fly, so sometimes I miss the shots because I'm too nervous. And that's why with street and travel photography, I so much push you guys to not be nervous. Ask people, do stuff, and with the drone, I just have to fly more. But when you switch over your drone to a new one, and you figure out that, hey, I filmed something that I already filmed a lot of times, I know exactly how far I can go back, and that drone had the option to use it 2 times or a 1 time, and I accidentally put it on 2 times. But they were sensors everywhere, right? So when you go back and you see a tree, it will start to scream, hey, watch out, object. It did absolutely that. DJI, great work. The only problem was that I flew back. Then I saw this and then I heard object. A little bit too late. The problem was that we needed to fire department to get our drone out of the tree. The fire department didn't want to come, of course. So we rented a high worker, as we call him over here. And as you can see here, the guys actually had a lot of fun getting my drone out of the tree. To be honest, my fun was a little bit less. And the bill was also a little bit more than I expected. But hey, at least I now know, don't trust the sensors in your DJI if you go backwards into a tree. Planes. Of course, you can sit in your plane and do nothing, or you can make some interesting shots. Now, this was actually shot on the airport, of course, but in the airplane, I just love sitting next to the window and just taking some shots. It can be interesting, and at least it's a nice way to kill the time. Now, this one actually got me into trouble. Now, in all honesty, I'm normally a very quiet passenger. I just sit there with my headphones on and my iPad, and I will just try to disappear and stay alive during the whole trip, because I'm a big guy, and in planes I'm always flying economy or economy comfort, so I'm really tied in. And with this one, I thought it would be fun. Everybody was sleeping, the lights were off. I thought, you know what, let's make a night shot. And I first tried it without any covering, and it just didn't work. We got a lot of reflection from the window, and I needed, I believe, a 30-second or 1-minute exposure on my phone. So that didn't work. So I grabbed my cushion, put my phone against the window, grabbed the cushion and just pushed it against and wait for 30 seconds. Put the cushion off, looked, no, put again. And somehow the stewardess saw that and she was just talking to somebody else. And then two of those stewardesses came up to me like, "Sir, you know that's a window, right?" I said, "Yes, that's familiar. What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I tried to take a shot." And I looked and they said, "Oh, that looks great." And at that point, there was no problem at all. But they probably thought that I was trying to get the window open or out. In all honesty, the shot is worth it. I absolutely love this one. And it's actually pretty surprising that the stars are still. I think if I would have shot this with a normal camera, the stars would have all these stripes. And sometimes an iPhone or an Android is just better with taking photos. Don't ask me why. It's just so. Johannesburg. This is the part where we shoot from the car to make sure that we're safe. Because a lot of people told me like, hey, don't go out because they will look at you, they smile. You probably get your card back if you ask, but you will lose your gear. So in Johannesburg, most of the time I shot out of the car to get these shots. And one of the most asked questions, and this is why I show you so many of these shots, is what kind of lens do you use on holidays and trips? And in all honesty, the 24-240 from Sony. It's a lens that is a 10 times zoom. A lot of people don't like it because it's slow. And in all honesty, when I started testing it, I tested it, I believe, on an A7R II. And I sent it back to Sony because it just didn't work. It was too slow. I tested it out on an A7R IV and it was much faster. And now on the A7R V, it works great. Now, it's not a lens to capture birds in flight. It's not a lens to capture sports. Absolutely not. It's terrible for that. But as a travel lens, it's amazing. It's not cheap. It's actually a pretty expensive zoom lens. But having the 24-240, it's amazing. You never have to switch lenses and you get all the shots you want. As you can see here, it's the only lens I used during that whole trip. And a lot of people will tell you it's a bad lens. It's not. It's really sharp and it just gives you a tremendous amount of range. And you can quickly change over between the wide angles and the more telelens. This was actually a small village. It's actually not a village. It was more like a few houses. And one of the guys that showed us around, his wife, I believe, was doing balls over Africa by giving children balls to play with for soccer balls, of course. And he said, I will show you not the touristy part of Johannesburg, but the non-touristy part. Now, at first, we had to stay in the car for the very simple reason he said it's not safe if we don't talk to them first. And then I got out of the car, and in all honesty, it was a little bit of a culture shock for me. I shot these people, and they were very, very nice, incredibly nice, and very open. And I really felt bad at one point by shooting them. I was going like, yeah, but I'm shooting their misery, and do I feel right about this? And I talked to one of the guys there, and he was like the leader. And I said, yeah, I just take these pictures also to show people how people live in other countries and that it's not all that luxury that we're used to in the West. And he just looked at me and going like, bad situations? He said, you live in a bad situation. He said, you have all these concrete and stones, you lost touch with nature. He said, this is the way it's supposed to be. He said, we have to destroy all the buildings in Johannesburg. We have to go back to nature. This is how we want to live. And that for me was a total culture shock because I thought for years that those people wanted to have all the luxury stuff that we have. Never realized that they just love the way that they live. And maybe that's very colored and it's only one community that thinks that way. But for me, I was in the car and I was going like, I understand now why there's so much problems with the integration. Because if you have one part that wants cities and running water and toilets and one part that wants to go back to nature and that those are the original inhabitants, it can get a little bit tricky. Overall, I love the country. I just felt that the apartheid was still in the air and it's something that felt really bad for us. So yeah, I love the country, I love the people, and that feeling was a little bit weird. And of course in Johannesburg, I love also to work with shadows. Close to home, you can find great locations close to home. This was the final part, by the way, of the seminar. This was shot during the latest Scott Kelby photo walk in Kampen. And as you can see here, I'm playing around with the angles. This one is nice. This one is much nicer because now we have more of the connection of the bicycles. You can stand here and have a great shot, but what if you move a little bit more further back? Or just point your camera straight down in something. Reflections, coming back, right? Low angles, and of course get some of that lettering in from the street. And of course for converting verticals in the church. Or this. So this is nice. This was one of my first shots where I go like, yeah, I like it. But it's, you know, the organ doesn't really show up. The scale of the church is shown, but it doesn't engage me. It doesn't draw me in. When I look at this shot, I go like, oh, it's more abstract, but it also gives me a more interesting look. So although this one shows more of the church, this one for me is my favorite. This one I liked because of the gold, the whole reflection. It just jumps out on you. And you see the reflections in there. You see me shooting. You see the church. You see the lettering. And somehow it just drew my eye and I shot it. Reflections outside, of course, the cat. We have to shoot pets, right? Same here, reflection. And you can actually see my son there in the reflection. This one is the same story as all the other ones. He was talking to a client, I guess. And I just walked by and I said, man, I just waited till he was done with talking. I said, man, I love what you have in your hands with all the colors. Did you build that yourself? Yes, he built it. He said, but I have a better one. He went in. I said, go outside. I want to take a shot. And it's not the best shot, of course, but this is one of those shots that you just take in between. You send it to him and he likes it, you like it, and you made an acquaintance, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. When it rains, you can take the drops off your lens or you can leave them on. And in this case, I love the little droplets on the lens. And then it started to rain really bad, as you can see here. Now, which one do you like more? This one or this one? This one is more, everything fits, everything is nice. This is what you should expect with composition and everything. This one is actually pretty bad. It's cut off, the feet are cut off. But this one gives me way more oomph, way more the feeling of I'm there. And this is something to do with something Dave Black taught me. Dave Black is a great photographer, shot many Olympic Games. And I showed him once at Photoshop World one of my shots from a motocrosser. And I thought it was a great shot. Awesome. Shot it with a 400mm, 2.8. It really was a great shot. You saw all the dust coming up and the eyes through the visor. Great. And he looked at it, he said, yeah, but it doesn't move me. I said, Dave, how can this not move you? Look at, you see the star. He said, yeah, give me your iPad. So I gave him my iPad and he just zoomed in. He said, now, this I like. You know what he did? He just cut off a little bit of the head and a little bit of the wheels. You still saw the dirt flying up, but the thing is, in my shot, you just saw the bike. You didn't really see the eyes. I saw it because I shot it. But if you just saw it casually, you only saw the bike. Great shot. Awesome. Movement. Wow, great. The Dave Black version where he just zoomed in a little bit. Immediately you saw the eyes. And I was going like, how the heck? And he said, what do you always teach people when you teach model photography? I said, oh yeah, I got it. I always teach people to cut off a little bit of the head because then the eyes are immediately drawing the viewer in. Why not do that with your travel and street photography? Why keep it so perfect? And that's why I like this shot a lot more than the other one. This one is nice, perfect. This one is cut off. Somebody's looking down. It's too dark. But that just gives me that whole vibe of being there. It's not a perfectly lit shot, perfect composition. No, I'm telling the story of rain, people walking around with an umbrella and running past. And look at this guy that's looking at me. Much more interesting. And of course, rainbow. Prism working in the glass, and I just saw that rainbow and I said, I have to shoot that one. Closing thoughts. You can take images in great locations or in a submarine. In this case, I'm not down under the sea level. This was actually in a week. Where was that? Volcanic Island. Tenerife. And actually, I was with Glyn Dewis in the submarine. And we just shot it through the window, again through the window. But in the end, you do it together. And Henri is always with me when traveling. And as you can see here, we're on the top of a mountain, changing lenses. And this is where I really messed up. Really messed up. This is one of those locations where you are once in your lifetime. There was no other person in the area. And you know why? Because it was not allowed. Because they were building a road. The funny thing is, the guy that showed me around said, okay, let's go to this amazing place where you can climb on a mountain, and it's God's wonder that you see. And I said, okay, great, I love that, let's go. And then we were driving, and it was very quiet on the road. Nobody was coming this way. And I was going, weird. So after 45 minutes, there was this big truck on the road changing stuff, and I was just going like, oh my God, we can't continue. He said, wait a minute. So he went out, went to the truck driver that was building the road, pulled him out. I thought he was hitting him, shouting. He was hit back, hit him again, pushed him around. And then the truck went away, and we were allowed to pass. And I was just looking at him going like, I don't even want to know. And he said, no, it's my brother. It was all staged. He said, I called him this morning that we were gonna scare the shit out of you by fighting. I said, oh, thank God. The cool thing is, because there were no tourists there, everything was empty. Now, the problem was, first of all, it took us 45 minutes to get on the top of the mountain. I was at the top of the mountain, and we just looked around, and it was amazing. The most beautiful sight I ever saw in my life. And you remember the poll that I opened up? Let's see. 87% says yes. Did you ever come home and that killer shot you took ended up being pretty boring? And 13% says no. You dirty liars. Of course you messed up. Because everybody does. You know the problem was with this one? Everywhere we looked was amazing. It was unbelievably beautiful. So what do? You take your wide angle and you take everything in. You put down your wide angle and you enjoy the air. You climb down. You go into Lightroom. You want to take a look at those shots. And what do you find out? You were still in bliss. In other words, you didn't take in the area. That's why the poll says that super shot did it ended up being boring. I have one shot from this whole trip that I like. Or sorry, from this segment of the trip that I liked. And that's actually this shot. Not even taken by me. Because all the other shots just show flat, boring land. Great with snow and fjords and mountains, but it's boring. There's nothing to see. How could I have made it interesting? By zooming in, using a 200mm lens, compressing everything and just showing parts of that beautiful area instead of trying to show it all. Or use a drone. So overall, be careful. And of course, always have your camera ready, because sometimes you see a double rainbow and you don't see them a lot, and make sure that you immediately can shoot it. And of course, make sure that always shadows are in your shot, because shadows are the soul of a shot. And especially when you do it with the two of you, why not take a shot with the two of you holding hands and having a shadow? I hope you enjoyed this it's almost 2.5 hours. I hope you enjoyed our talk about street and travel photography in a different way. I still have to do some stuff by end of week. We have a surprise for you guys on, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. If I'm not, sorry. We are recording a new Kelby class. Yes, I believe on the 17th. Claudia will be our model, and we're going to do a surprise class. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it's going to be interesting, and everybody can do it. We're going to use materials that everybody has to create some really great shots. So Kelby class, look out for that. Then in January, I believe the 20th and 21st, we are at BenQ headquarters in the Netherlands for a BenQ meeting. And I will be trying to do also some interviews there with people from BenQ. February 18th will be the next digital classroom, and that will be the one Lightroom for absolute beginners. Or in other words, if you know nothing about Lightroom and you think Lightroom is scary, it will kill you, it will hunt you down in your dreams, that's the one to look, because after that class, you will love Lightroom, you will embrace it, and you will start using it all the time. Trust me, it's amazing. And again, if you already know everything about Lightroom, skip that one or just watch it because it's fun. But we're just going to start really simple, how to import images, how to make sure that you find your images back by using keywords. How does the whole workflow work? What is the best way to retouch something to get a nice look? Where do you put your color profiles? It's the basic stuff that people are afraid of and don't want to use Lightroom and use Photoshop, which in essence is much more complicated. And we're going to do some advanced stuff, but mostly is basic. Then January 31st, this is interesting. I'm going to be in Tilburg for a workshop. Tilburg is far away from Emmeloord, so that means that a lot of people that live in Belgium or Brabant or Limburg can actually very easily follow the workshop in Tilburg. Tilburg will be a combination workshop, so I will combine parts of all the workshops I teach in Emmeloord into one workshop. So you will get a little bit of classical masters, use essential portraits, lighting and reflections, lens flares, special effects. It will all be crammed into one workshop, so it's going to be amazing. And on our website, you can actually register for that. And then, and this is absolutely not 100% certain, but it is sort of certain. In July, we will probably teach a workshop in Denmark. So if you are living in Denmark, contact us, or if you're interested in a workshop in Denmark, contact us. We are in the preparation stages, so the more people we have that already confirmed only makes it easier for us. So we are working on the locations and models, and there are some people already organizing it. So it's in the early stages, it can be cancelled, but in essence, yes, Denmark in July. I love Denmark. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and otherwise I will see you for the next one. We have a lot of new YouTube videos. We try to do a lot of the information on the blog, by the way. I totally revamped that a few months ago. And in the past, we did a lot of our social media content on social media, like Facebook, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, and whatnot more. We are on almost all the platforms. The thing is, nowadays, especially with X and Facebook, the polarization is so bad. And I don't have any problems with people that follow me. We don't have any negative reactions. But the network is really poisonous. And I don't want to invest all my energy and all my knowledge in a platform that I don't support politically, like the polarization of groups, telling people that the EU is burning. It's insane. So we decided a few months ago to still do social media, but do the real articles, reviews, and the more advanced stuff all on frankdoorhof.com. So make sure that you visit our website at least 3 times a week, because we are uploading new articles 3 times a week. Before, for example, tonight, there will be an article online about a new eye wing from Gigoto, a new reflector we just have in. So make sure that you check out our website. I'm looking where I can find it. There we go. So frankdoorhof.com/blog, but if you go just to frankdoorhof.com, you will find it automatically. Oh, and transition. Okay, guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you again next time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Hit that like and bell notification button, of course, if you want to get information when we go live. But most of all, tell other people about our channel so we can grow and put on more content. See you again next time. Bye, guys.